G'day, mate. It's Colin McGeezer here. I'm about to tell you the sun's going to blow up, but it's all going to be fine, so just don't even worry about it. It's not even a big deal, mate. It's just like a hiccup. Nothing really is going to happen, so just try to relax. Don't get all afraid about what you think is going to be happening or not going to be happening to the sun, mate. I'm just here to share messages of joy and good cheer and love and welcome everyone. That was my Colin McGeezer. Just to start it off a little bit with some Colin McGeezer. Hope you guys can hear me. Looks like you can. I have so many slides today that I don't even have time to brag about my sequined shoes. Yes, once again, we can get them into the camera here. I totally threw down for you guys, and I came out with sequins on my shoes. I also had to tie up the critics and tie up all the gambling pools on David Wilcock by doing a totally unprecedented move. Wearing a clean shirt, first of all, that's pretty unprecedented. And then it's maroon colored. So, you know, people are expecting blue, they're expecting, you know, purple, they're expecting maybe light blue, maybe gray, but maroon, wow. So yes, I have stepped up once again. And I've decided to amplify the David Wilcock game, take it to the next level, go out into the jungle, hunt the wild beast, kill it, drag it back to the cave, covered in maroon. I mean, this is a manly color, you guys. I am out there fighting the battles for you. I'm out there kicking butt. And if I want to wear a maroon shirt, I don't expect to be criticized about it. Anyway, we got such a great show for you guys today. I'm really excited. I had to meditate and think about what do I want to talk about? What's really exciting right now? And for me, it's this whole concept of the multidimensional shift that we're going through. Now, I've tried to explain that our solar system is undergoing a metamorphosis, and I've mostly shared ancient prophetic texts with you. They might be ancient from our perspective, but it turns out that there's beings out there who are not feeling that ancient at all about it. They might have just done these prophecies. We talked in a couple previous episodes. Let me get my hair even more funky here. Let's just add funk. You want more funk? Do you like that? Is that better for you? I would hope so. Let's just find out. Watching from North Minnesota, who's going to the Disclosure Summit? Love the color. It's perfect with your shoes. Thank you. You are the best. Any red or blue will really pop on screen. David, you are so cool, not to mention you're my friend if I need a smile, laugh, and some excellent information. I'm Rebecca Merkaba of David. Awesome color, love it. Beantown, you're so silly. What up, people? Sammy says, please tell us, are med beds real? Well, yeah, I'm going to get into all this really cool stuff. And Dave, slow mode sucks. I don't know what slow mode is. I'm not trying to be slow. I'm just trying to get going. And also, you guys really like it when I interact with you. So sometimes I just want to read some comments, and there's some pretty good stuff going on here. You look younger and younger every time I see you, says Melissa Edwards. Ash says, David, you are hot. Well, thank you. Tarotina says, hello from Buenos Aires, Argentina. Thank you, David, for the work you do. I'm looking for all the videos on your channel since 1 week. I just discovered you. Well, that's exactly what we want. In the traditional view, we look at these ancient prophecies as if they happened a long time ago, but then I will tell you that maybe they didn't. Maybe they're actually happening now, and maybe these entities are going back in time, and they're speaking about events that are occurring in the present. So there seems to be a big surprise at the end of the 25,000-year cycle that these 35 different ancient religious prophecies or spiritual prophecies talk about. That was in Graham Hancock's epic book, Fingerprints of the Gods. In 1996 it came out. I got it right as it came out, 95. And it was so amazing because he had this stuff in there about two historians, Santayana and Van de Schend, and they had found 35 ancient prophecies from all over the world that talked about a 25,000-year cycle, that there would be some sort of catastrophe at the end of the 25,000 years, and that there would also be some sort of massive species evolution. Michael Rollins donated, says, David, I love your contentment. When are you going to do a deep dive on San Francisco's history, ancient civilizations? Well, this all kind of ties together. It's going to be everybody's ancient history, because what happens is we have a whole suppressed history that we don't know about, where we look at these extraterrestrial contacts that gave birth to these 35 mythologies as if they were mythology. I even said mythologies, right? But that's not what they are. They're just written records of extraterrestrial human contact. So when you start looking at things this way, you say to yourself, well, wait a minute. If somebody went around, as I've delineated in previous episodes, you can watch here for free on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/DavidWilcock333. Guys, we are so close to 500,000 subscribers. It's like crazy. Please subscribe. Please, because I want to get over that line. It would be like, it's like having $500,000. Fake it till you make it, right? Let's just try to visualize something positive out of all this. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is that there has been this widespread tradition in ancient cultures about some type of solar flash. And the one that really gets into detail the most here is the Hindu version, which is called Samvara. Okay? And so we have these prophecies from all over the world, but some of them are going to focus on certain dates as being more important than others. And the end of the 25,000 years is the most important date, because this is when they're saying that we're going to have Samvara and that the sun is going to release this incredible amount of light and energy. Now, you're going to say to yourself, well, David, I don't even really believe that. I don't even really believe that the Hindus have that in their scripture. Can you prove it to me? Well, yes, that's what I'm going to do. So somebody who's new and hasn't watched this before, you're the one I made this for, because others of my audience might have heard some of these before, but it's sort of like if you go see Pink Floyd, you're not expecting them to play entirely new music. You want to hear the Pink Floyd songs that you love. So I have my own sort of repertoire of music that I like to perform. And talking about solar flash is one of my favorite things, because the Hindus have some very, very fascinating references to it. There appears to be humanoids who are blue, who came here from somewhere else. There's a passage in the Hindu Vedic scripture known as the Mahabharata, where Krishna is commenting on how nice the earth looks as they come in from space. That's actually in those books. They talk about Vimanas. And in my Michael Prophecies 7 books, book 1 starts with a discussion about the ancient Hindu text, the Vaimanika Shastra. And the Vaimanika Shastra is a text that describes the use of a flying machine and how to build one. And there was a guy named Talpaid, and in 1895, he actually got this to work. He built it, and it did fly, but it was using a mercury implosion engine. Now, the mercury engine is very different than what we're normally expecting to see, because the mercury engine uses electrified mercury that is then circulated through a turbine that emulates the shape of natural vortexes of water. And yes, this was discovered by Dr. Victor Schauberger. He based it on his observations of trout and how they would levitate up these waterfalls. And he wanted to know what was causing levitation, because it didn't seem that gravity would be able to explain this. And sure enough, he found that there was levitating gravitational currents inside waterfalls, and the fish would do this funny dance that would sort of get them ready for anti-gravity. They'd go spinning around in circles in this really wild gyrating motion in like a toroidal shape, and then that would somehow allow them to be able to go up this stream. So he duplicated the shape that the trout would make in the water, and he built that into a turbine, and then he did it with water, and it actually created anti-gravity. But apparently if you do it with mercury instead of water, it works even better. Well, that all goes back to the Hindu version of what's in the Vaimanika Shastra, this actual mercury vortex ion engine that Talpaid built in 1875, and by God, it levitated. They didn't know how to control it or steer it or anything. It was unpiloted. So it just kind of took off, and then it sort of blew up in the air like a typical balloon might do if you didn't really have the right balloon and it was sort of not tied on properly. It just kind of falls apart. Everything falls out of the sky. That's what ended up happening. But this is really fascinating because, again, Talpaid used the direct engineering instructions in a Hindu ancient text to build a modern-day flying machine before the Wright brothers. So India might actually have to get credit for the flying machine. Now, the Vimana that they describe in their Hindu religious scriptures, known as the Vedas, okay, the Vedas talk about these flying craft that are incredible. They fly through mountains, they fly through oceans, they don't make any noise except for maybe a beautiful humming sound, they have weapons capability. All this stuff is widely reported in the Vedas. So we have what appears to be an extraterrestrial society that came here. They have blue-colored skin, but they look human, and so that's why you see pictures of Krishna, and he's got cobalt blue skin. Like, whoa, what's that all about? Well, it's not just an artistic style. It has to do with him coming from a different planet of origin. And remember, NASA has already told us there's 40 billion with a B, 40 billion Earth-like planets in our Milky Way galaxy alone. And when you start getting into the data that I've shared so many times in the past and is in my new Sacred Science of Michael course about DNA and how DNA is a geometric byproduct of quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics is built to make life. Quantum mechanics is built to make DNA molecules. The DNA molecule can assemble out of plain water in this classic experiment by Dr. Luc Montagnier, where he takes a tube of water that has DNA in it and a tube of water that's just plain, and then he electrifies both of them for 18 hours with the 7 hertz electromagnetic frequency. That's the base frequency of Earth, 7 hertz. You zap these 2 tubes with that, and then, for some reason, just using Earth's electromagnetic frequency, the tube over here that has the DNA in it, that stays the same, but this tube only had pure, clean water. After 18 hours of just cooking it in 7 hertz electricity, that's it. This tube now has grown DNA in it. Hydrogen and oxygen is supposed to be all there is in water, H2O. Maybe some trace minerals here and there, not too much. Distilled water was used anyway, so there's nothing in there but hydrogen and oxygen. How do you get hydrogen and oxygen molecules to, if you will, alchemically recombine themselves to become DNA? Well, Dr. Luc Montagnier won the Nobel Prize for discovering the HIV molecule, and yet his work in this was totally shunned by Western scientists. Why? Because it creates a paradigm shift in which we now are living in a biological universe in which all of the fundamental laws of the universe are derived from geometry. This is my bigger perspective on it now. And those geometric force fields will intelligently create life. And they begin with hydrogen and oxygen, the tinker toys they find in water molecules. They'll start rearranging those molecules, which we're taught in science. You know, that's supposed to be impossible. That can't happen. Well, it does. So we have to fix some of our scientific assumptions. And another thing that I find equally important on all this is the concept that not only does life precipitate from the vacuum, if you will, from the quantum medium that we're all emanating from, but life evolves based upon changes in the instructions from the quantum medium. Life evolves because the quantum medium tells it to, because the quantum medium changes the geometry. And when you change the geometry, the life itself changes. Now, this was proven many, many different ways, as I've said before. My favorite one was from Dr. Peter Garyaev, a Russian scientist, who took salamander eggs, zapped them with a laser beam. They're hermetically sealed. The laser energy now has salamander DNA in it, salamander photons. You take those salamander laser photons, you shoot them into another hermetically sealed container so no air can get in, no germs can get in. This one's got frog eggs in it. Then you let that cook for a while, and I have the laser right here. It's called LGN 303. Maybe I'll bring it out sometime. But I couldn't do it now. I'd have to, end the show and go back into the garage. It's up in the garage somewhere. But anyway, I bought the laser from Garyaev that does this trick. It has a transverse wave in it that goes alongside the longitudinal photons, and that's part of what makes it magic. That 90-degree angle cross in the beam is very important. Anyway, when you take that laser, you shoot it through salamander eggs, you redirect them into frog eggs, it's the equivalent of what the sun can do, where it reprograms the frog DNA with new photons, new geometry, new information, because photons are geometric. And I talk about that in my Sacred Science of Michael course. It's a whole incredible 11-hour dissertation on sacred geometry and the new laws of the universe that we can derive based upon fundamental principles taught to us by ancient and modern extraterrestrials. And the main principle is those frog eggs changed into salamanders. And all they had going in there was light from salamander eggs. The frog eggs mutated into salamanders. They grew to adulthood. And when they had children with other salamanders, their babies were salamanders. Nothing ever reverted back to a frog. There would be absolutely no way to know that these salamanders had been hatched out of a frog's body and then grew into a totally different species just like that. Now for me, I like to combine these two things together because when we look at what the ancient prophecies say, and when I say these two things, I mean the Hindu prophecy of the solar flash, and we're looking at this, right? We're talking about Samvara, and I'm just telling you that the sun might be able to do the same trick that we just did to the frog eggs. What if the sun is putting out human photons that make human beings that look like us now, but the sun is also, according to my main core philosophical text I've been working with since 1996, January 96, it's called The Law of One. It was intuitively derived in 1981 by a group of 3 people who thought that they had made contact with an extraterrestrial, very high-level consciousness that at that time called itself Ra, but it gives all these weird secret hints that it's Christian throughout all 5 books. And then in my case, it comes back, and I began channeling in 1996 as well. Through 2000 is when the main phase of this happened, and it called itself Archangel Michael. And a couple years ago, I started reading these again, and every single line is predicting stuff that's going on now. So I've now written 7 books. I spent 2 years doing this, and this is all the material from 1996 through 2000 that Archangel Michael said through me. Now, I wasn't even excited about it being Archangel Michael. I hid this for a long time. I didn't talk about it. You get trolled really heavily online if you start saying that you channeled some higher angelic consciousness. But I followed the laws of remote viewing, which are supposed to create 99% accuracy. You don't analyze anything. You get to the mind awake, body asleep phase, light as a feather, stiff as a board. You don't have any analysis of what's coming through. You don't have any emotional reaction to what's coming through. You don't eat any. You don't need to eat anything. You don't need to go to the bathroom. You're very relaxed. The main thing is you do not analyze, and you train yourself to understand, hey, you know what? If I get my mind really quiet, certain thoughts arise spontaneously. I don't have to work on them. They just show up. Certain words arise spontaneously. I can just grab them. But it's very, very difficult to do this because if you do it consciously, your mind wants to hook onto the words and say, oh, I understand what's being said and I want to track where this is going. And then your mind will want to add things. So I got in a lot of trouble with Archangel Michael early along because occasionally I would add things. And the main thing I was adding was all this Art Bell fear porn from the year 1998 mostly, where I was worried that California was going to sink into the ocean in 1998 because Edgar Cayce had a prophecy that said that was going to happen. It didn't take place. However, it could have. We definitely dodged a bullet in 1998. And according to Archangel Michael, when he was speaking through me, if our collective civilization had decided to go after Bill Clinton and hate him for who he was, because there was a Monica Lewinsky thing going on at the time, there was another one with Paula Anderson. Okay, so if people had judged him, condemned him, said that, they want to see him tortured or whatever, if that had been the mass opinion, then apparently we would have had a pole shift in 1998 and we would have just been all flushed into the ocean. And then that would have been, according to the Cayce readings, when you have the second coming of Christ. They talked about 1998 as a pole shift and the second coming of Christ. Whatever that event is interpreted to mean, which again, in the Cayce tradition, the Christ has a very specific meaning. The Christ is the consciousness of the universe. And apparently Jesus made contact with that and actually became an embodiment of the consciousness of our galaxy according to the Law of One. They call that the Logos. Jesus became a logoic incarnation. The incarnation of God the Sun, which is our galactic consciousness, that apparently has patterned all planets, all 40 billion Earth-like planets in our galaxy are patterned to have human-looking beings. According to the law of one, individual stars have personality over how those beings look. So in some civilizations, they have insectoid beings. In some of them, they have reptilians. In some of them, they have aquatic, the mer people, believe it or not, oceanic planets where there really is no surface crust. There's lots and lots of different ways that life can form. And it always is going to take a biome that looks fairly similar to what we have on Earth. And then some creatures within that biome are going to evolve into an intelligent hominid form where it has eyes, nose, mouth, ears, a head, 2 arms, 2 legs usually. Some cases with the insects, they're not doing that. But mostly this is where it goes. But again, the individual star could choose to make your skin color blue or green or yellow or pink or orange, and all these colors apparently exist. White, stark gray, all these things exist. But there's a surprising similarity in how human people look. And when you try to figure out why is it that all of the different insiders, every reputable insider I've ever spoken to has said, yeah, you know what? Everybody looks human. The answer is photons that have the human blueprint in them, because that's the mind of Christ. God made man in his image. Well, the word God is actually translated as logos. The logos, the galactic logos, made humans in its image. So even though the logos has a galaxy, and then there's all these stars, and then the stars have planets, where the rubber meets the road is on the surface of those planets. You have a biome with all these different forms of life, and there's intelligent photons that come out of that sun that program life to evolve a certain way, just like you can program frog eggs to evolve into salamander eggs. All right? Now, at the end of 25,000 years, our sun in third density goes through this big solar flash, which again, the Hindus call Samvartika. There's how you spell the word. It also is sometimes spelled Samvarta. You can get rid of the AK at the end of the word there. Just cut that out and you'll see that as well. And I'm about to show you all this, but I'm setting it up for you so you understand why this is important. If extraterrestrials are all human, it's because of this science where individual stars are putting out photons that make human bodies. Based on, according to the law of one, the sun, any given star has to invest in a particular form of life. So many of our planets in our solar system, in our galaxy, they're going to have hominid life. They're going to use apes, monkeys, that type of a life form to grow into human, but that isn't always what happens. There are apparently people who evolve out of cats more directly, out of dogs more directly. Anything and everything you can imagine, I've had various insiders tell me about. So it's a very fascinating subject because we are right around the corner from getting to meet our galactic family. And when you wonder where these UFOs are coming from, I believe that we have a very, very populated galaxy. And when you understand that frog eggs can be transformed energetically into salamander eggs by nothing more than photons, that really adds a whole new layer of texture to the discussion. Because the reason all these ETs look human could be that this is the mind of Christ. This is the body of Christ. This is what it did in our galaxy as the Logos. Nobody's even talking. You guys are so blown away, nobody's writing any comments. I'm like, did it stop or what's going on? I guess that's good, right? If everybody's in such a state of awe that nobody's writing any comments, that's good. It's going really slow right now. Just be yourself, David. You're amazing, it says. Okay, great. I'll just keep doing that. So my point in telling you all this is if the human design is a galactic Christ template, you know, that's just the term Christians use, but it could be called Allah. It could be called Buddha. It could be called the Tao. Different religions appear to be contacted by these extraterrestrials who all know the same stuff, and they just try different ways of teaching it to us. But the one thing they agreed on in 35 different ancient cultures, hey, you guys are going to have a solar flash, and you're going to evolve into some new form of life as this happens. The big addition that I got through the Michael prophecies, as I've said in many previous shows now, is that apparently we are not going to have the pole shift catastrophe part. we're going to go through a non-catastrophic evolutionary event here on Earth. And Michael has asserted, he did this back in the late 1990s, that COVID, he describes COVID in so much detail, he even has the word itself put in various coded forms throughout the books. All the stuff that happened with inoculations, it's a very curious thing that Archangel Michael in these books dated. He said, you know, the real end of the Mayan calendar is actually December 26th, 2020. It got moved ahead from 2012 to December 26, 2020. Why that day? Well, that's the day that you have Jupiter and Saturn conjoining, and the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction happens on December 26, 2020. That's where the two planets are in the same place in the sky. And this has very, very interesting multidimensional effects when you understand that these two planets are much larger than all the other planets combined. And when they come together, because of the geometry and these energetic fields that we've now discovered, a Jupiter-Saturn conjunction is a very interesting effect on biological life and consciousness. Again, if biological life can be formed and changed by photons, if we can change frog eggs into salamander eggs using photons, then what's happening as the solar system is going through this charge up? Well, our DNA is changing. And according to the law of one and many other spiritual traditions, including the ancient ones, this change is an elective process. You get to decide how much you're going to grow. But there is going to be an absolute time where there will be this Samvara solar flash. And it says in the scriptures that the solar flash occurs after we have hit our worst point. There are 12 direct references to Samvartika in the Hindu scriptures, and the way I found this is by going to Google, and then you type in site : and then the website, and that constrains your search to a particular website. So if you don't want to go through all this hassle of looking for everything, and I know, okay, well, sacredtext.com has all the Hindu religious texts published on it. At least it's got the Mahabharata and some of the other Vedas, so that's enough. So just within the scope of what's in sacred texts, I can type cite sacred texts, and then the word that I want to see before then. I just had a donation come in from Daisy, Alvin, Fred. Thank you. Why didn't anything happen after the eclipse? We are going to get to that. We dodged a bullet, folks. The deep state really wanted something to happen. The alliance was warning us, and it thankfully did not occur. So I do not for a minute think that we should be like, oh, they lied to us. No, no, no. We are very, very lucky, and I'm very glad we have more time. But we'll get to that a little later. So this is how I did it. I went into Google, and you notice I got 12 pages of results. That's a lot for Samvartika, okay? So sure enough, well, actually 12 individual results. So what that means is when I type in the word Samvartika, I got 12 hits out of the Hindu scriptures, and I just published the first two. As I just said, you can shorten it to Samvarta, and then you get 31 more references that you find in the Hindu scriptures. So it's adding up fast. 12 plus 31, you're already up to 43. It also translates in Buddhism as Samvata fire. So because Buddhism is derived off of Hinduism, you can go into the Buddhist tradition and they have Samvata. But the Samvata fire Samvata seems to be different in Buddhism than Hinduism. And I think there might have been a little bit of interference on the channel there because they talk about how Samvata has something to do with like, it's only going to happen once in so many years. So there was a little bit of a loss in translation there. So I'm going to stick with the Hindu because these texts, some people believe, many scholars believe they're 18,000 years old. They survived the Atlantean catastrophe. And this time in which the Hindus had Krishna and these other blue-skinned humans living among us, that time actually goes back to the same time of before Atlantis. And there were two warring civilizations. There was Rama and there was Atlantis. And they're both fighting each other. And so this is very, very fascinating. That there was because the Edgar Cayce readings described a civilization they called Rama that had a nuclear war with a civilization they called Atlantis, which led to a cataclysm. And another big secret, if you haven't heard this before, is that Antarctica is Atlantis. Atlantis used to be in a warm area, and then this nuclear war caused us to have a pole shift. and it sank to the bottom. Atlantis sank to the bottom, became Antarctica. The floodwaters, the flooding of Atlantis quickly froze and turned into permafrost and ice. So this appears to be what we're actually dealing with. And they're all saying, though, despite whatever happened 12,000 years ago, the one thing everybody's really looking out for is this Samvara fire. Everything changes again if you discover Yuga fire. I got 2 more donations. Lori Lee, thank you. YAS, thank you. I'm not going to be able to catch them all, or I'm never going to be able to get through all these slides, you guys. But thank you so much for the donations. I love it. I do need the money, so it's awesome that you're donating. I need like $2,000 total to get through the end of the month, and we might even get that today, so I really appreciate it. Anyway, so everything changes once you discover the term Yuga fire, because, whoa, now we got 187 different hits in the Mahabharata for Yuga fire, and it's the same thing. Okay, 187 different hits, but then I went through all of them, and approximately 65 do not actually put the words Yuga and fire together, but that still leaves us another 122 references about a fire at the end of the Yuga. And again, the Yuga fire is coming out of the sun. So again, we have a total of 187 different references that I was able to find just off of what's on Sacred Text. More donations flying in. Thank you, Daisy, Alvin, Fred, and Brian. For a total of 157 references. 31 for Samvartika, 4 for Samvarta, 122 for Yuga fire. So this is very, very interesting. 157 different references means this is a very frequently discussed subject that these people considered a fact. They came here from somewhere else, they have blue skin, and what are they doing? They're fighting against another race that they call Rakshasas, or snakes. And these Rakshasas and snakes clearly appear to be humanoid reptilians. And even in India, you have these Naga temples, and the Nagas are reptilian humanoid beings that are often depicted as having snake tails below where the legs would be. Nagas, Nagas. Go look that up. There's still Naga temples today that show reptilian humanoids out there in India. So like reptilians? Blue-skinned humans? Yeah, it was an extraterrestrial society, but prior to the fall of Atlantis, Earth was widely colonized by extraterrestrials. We had very advanced technologies, and I've heard this now from multiple insiders that Afghanistan and Iraq, that the U.S. military went in there and they dug up very advanced spaceships and very advanced technologies under the earth in Afghanistan and Iraq. And when we went in there, when the U.S. went in there in these wars, they seized all these parts, and there's been an ongoing reverse engineering effort being made. So what I've also heard is the entire Sahara Desert from west to east, which is the top third of Africa, it's all dry and yellow looking. It's very kind of bland and uninspiring. That used to be a fertile crescent prior to about 50-some thousand years ago, 55,000 years ago, and there was some type of major catastrophe, which again was one of these wars of extraterrestrials, where there was a whole civilization there in the top third of Africa that all got wiped out. If you go 40 to 400 feet below the surface, you dig down through the sand, you're going to find all these megalithic ancient ruins. And one of the things that Uncle Jack told me, in the guy who was the Rothschild whistleblower, was that there are statues of people with African features. They have larger lips than a Caucasian, they have broader noses than a Caucasian, and there's major, major big statues of that. And so these guys in the DS are essentially not very friendly. They have the superiority issue, which I don't agree with at all. And that's one of the reasons why they haven't let us find out that there's these massive statues of black people that are very amazing, hiding underneath the sand in Africa, all over the place. But if you want to find them, if you want to find similar stuff, they were not able to hide it in Mesoamerica. They found the same kind of architecture in the buried stone heads. So if you go look up the Olmec stone heads, these weird large stone heads, they look like they're Africans. Well, there's a lot more of that stuff over under the sand in Africa. And so what they also have found is that this was a very technological civilization. According to Uncle Jack, they ate their food out of materializers. They were not growing crops. They had to go backwards in technology to teach people how to grow crops after this catastrophe happened, because they had 3D printed food. And you could get the most delicious meal you could ever want. You don't ever have to worry about it. You hit the button, it comes out perfectly every time. They had that type of technology. They had levitation technology. They had spiritual technology where your mind interfaces with the machine. Pete Peterson told me about one of the, they found a sarcophagus in Egypt, which is one of these areas in Africa where you dig down and you find these ancient ruins. They found a sarcophagus and nobody could figure out how to open it. And then it turned out that if you put your hands on it and you started singing a certain way in a certain frequency, that it would become something you could read. You could read the hieroglyphics. This is a technology, apparently. You could read the hieroglyphics, and then it will tell you what to sing. And if you sing that phrase, it opens the chest. And they did get this to work, apparently. And they found a bunch of strange, really amazing extraterrestrial-looking tools inside the sarcophagus, including like handheld little toys. And they didn't even know what the handheld devices could do. It interfaces with your technology, with your mind somehow, and they don't really know how to run these. But again, he basically sang the sarcophagus open. And now it's probably sitting somewhere in Area 51, hiding in a warehouse. There's so many things that we're not even looking at, and we need more people. We need to get the truth out. We need to get workers on this stuff. We need to have people singing on the sarcophagi or other ruins, and find out what it does. Okay, so these people that came here from another place wrote texts, and even though their civilization died off, one of the things we have left behind from them is the Mahabharata and other Hindu texts. Those were written while they were here, and they had this high technology. We just don't understand what we're reading. So they always talk about the Satya Yuga as the end of this whole process. After the 25,000 years, this is what we're going to get. The Satya Yuga is, according to Hindu belief, a golden age of righteousness, free of sin, marked by longevity, physical strength, beauty, and stature. There were giants in those days whose moral, mental, and physical strength enabled them to undergo long brahmacharya continence and tapas, or austerities. Longevity permitted lengthy spiritual exercises. Life then depended on the marrow and lasted a certain cycle or lakh of years, and people would die when they decided they were ready. Their stature was apparently 21 cubits. Well, so the Hindu scriptures talk about giants, and that's something we also see over here. It's a fascinating crossover. The Satya Yuga is the goal of where we want to go. This is the concept of ascension. After the 25,000 years, the sun does its thing, which now we're learning is not going to be catastrophic, at least not at first. And it won't go catastrophically until all of us are ready for that to happen, which could take another 100 to 700 years, according to the law of one. Right for now, we're going to get what Michael, in my books, has called a first wave of ascension. This happens in 2025. I'm going to go into way more detail this coming weekend in Loveland, Colorado, at the Marriott Hotel, I think it is, or Best Western, I forget which one. But we're out there in Loveland. I'm going to be doing a conference. It's the first one I've done since before COVID that was scheduled. I impromptu walked in on Corey Good's event in 2021, I believe, or 2020. And nobody was wearing masks. It was right during COVID. It was kind of amazing. But this is the first one I've actually showed up for where I said I'm going to do it. I'm probably going to do more in the future, but I've been very, very busy. We've had some incredible, incredible news. I have probably 2 different deals that I'm expecting for our company, Stavatti Aerospace, to come in this week. So all the worries I have about taxes, I'm not worried about it at all. I'm going to be able to pay it. It's going to be fine. I just haven't quite gotten there yet, so your super chats are very much appreciated. It's going to be this week, I think. I think it's going to be this week. Anyway, it's very, very close at hand. It calms everything down. It's going to make my life so much better. But until it happens, I'm on the edge of my seat, and it's still white knuckle, and it's like, oh my God, I got to do another show? Well, yeah, I want to start doing shows whether I feel good or not. If I'm not in the best mood, actually, honestly, doing this show now, I feel a lot better than I did before. I'm really enjoying talking about giants and Satya Yuga, Ascension, because this is, according to the law of one, it's going to be 100 times happier than what life on Earth is like now. You have a much, much greater ability to appreciate yourself, to appreciate your past lives, to appreciate your connection to the universe, You're not wondering if you're alone in the universe. You're aware that you are surrounded by and made by a living power that intelligently creates matter out of nothing and intelligently creates life out of nothing. And you, according to the law of one, are a creator being, and you will have the ability to create life. And we already do. We already do. Both sides, good and evil, are able to create life in different capacities if they know what they're doing in third-dimensional reality. And the negative side, of course, is talking about demons. So yeah, both sides can potentially create life using positive or negative practices, and the law of one says that we're allowed to have either option. If you choose the negative option, then you are what the law of one calls confused, and you have to go through karma, in which whatever suffering you cause others is going to happen to you. So that's where, I had so many people trying to recruit me into the occult side of the world religion that nobody really wants to talk about. I've had so many people try to recruit me and tell me, oh, Lucifer isn't a bad thing, and it's been misunderstood. It's just the benevolent overseer of mankind. Da-da-da-da-da. I've heard all this stuff. No, when you dig into it the way I do, you find out that there's some really dark things involved, and I don't want to ever participate in those things. So I have not walked, but ran from it whenever it was offered to me. Even if it included the idea that you're going to get $100 million or you're going to get $1 billion, I don't care. There's no amount of money you can pay me to make me want to get involved in this. Now, most of the people who are involved in it never had a choice. And that's why I don't really feel hatred towards them. Again, the 1998 lesson was, if everybody hated Clinton, we could have had a pole shift. Michael talks about that in the Michael Prophecies. So I don't want to hate these people, and I don't think you should either. I don't want to... If somebody's grown up in a very dark system, that's not an excuse to feel that they themselves had free will every step of the way. They probably didn't. Most of the time, you get born into this stuff, you can't escape, you have no way out, you're dragged into it from a child, you're traumatized very, very heavily, and you're just brought into this world where, even though it's sickening and disgusting, it's something you have to go through and you have to deal with it. It's just part of your life. So this is where Michael's teachings in the Law of One and in the Michael Prophecies, he really stresses not to demonize people. And that's going to be very difficult for us as more and more of this information emerges. But I really want to stress that once again, that if you were born into this, if you grew up in it your whole life, you really had no choice, and there's no way to escape without being killed for most of these people. So in that sense, the whistleblower, who's known as Savali, has said, if there was a way that people could get out, there would be a mass exodus. And if they could get out and live, that's the key. So all of this stuff that a certain group of people are doing is considered in the Law of One to be the negative polarity or the negative path that can get very horrific. But this is not just an accident. The negative is authorized to be here for the purpose of creating spiritual growth for us. Apparently in the Law of One, they said in the beginning, there were universes, there were galaxies created that had stars and planets, and the people on those planets had a full online connection to the one infinite creator. They were always online, they always had full access, they could do whatever they wanted. They had, and it turns out that they would sit around for hundreds of thousands of years completely bored. They were like spoiled rich kids, blissed out, high all the time, didn't want to do any work, didn't create any art, didn't create any music, didn't create any poetry. Nothing really very exciting happened in their civilizations, and it took a very long time for them to evolve. According to the Law of One, there was a veil created between the conscious and the superconscious mind, starting in one galaxy or one logos. And what this allowed for is, in third dimensional reality now, people could become consciously unaware that they were connected to any higher consciousness or that there was a God. And this created a very much massively increased spiritual growth process. Instead of hundreds of thousands of years, people could get it done 25,000 years. Bang, bang, bang. Few incarnations, human incarnations, third dimensional, and you get out of here. And you go on to fourth density, and now you become this ascended being with all these amazing abilities. And it's 100 times happier. You can levitate, you can fly, you can manifest objects out of thin air, you can talk with the voice of power, make your voice really loud, and shake all the walls, everything around you. There's all kinds of interesting stuff you're going to be able to do. So this is all described in the Bible as well. The reason Jesus is called the Lion of Judah is that he had this roaring voice. And in Michael Prophecies, I reinterpret multiple occasions of where Jesus uses this voice of power or other examples of it in the Bible. And then Edgar Cayce did it, of course, when he was levitating and spoke as Archangel Michael. His voice was shaking the walls of the house, and that's on legal record testimony from his son, Hugh Lynn Cayce. So this Krita Yuga is another name for the Satya Yuga, and again, there's 72 references to Krita Yuga in the Mahabharata, as you can see right here. 72 results when I type in Krita Yuga and Mahabharata, so just that book alone. So again, the Krita Yuga is just this one Hindu tradition, which seems to be stronger than a lot of the others on details, saying, yeah, you guys are going to have this amazing thing happen, the whole planet's going to transform. And in Hinduism and Zoroastrianism, they say that the negative is allowed to be existing. Especially Zoroastrianism points this one out. The negative is allowed to exist to promote evolution in the positive. Okay, so then we have Book 8, Karna Parva, that describes a circular disk. Isn't this something? Like men with diseased eyes that are unable to gaze at the sun. The Kauruvas, on that occasion, could not gaze at Jaya, who seemed to be possessed of the energy of the all-destroying sun that rises at the end of the Yuga, having arrows for his rays and Gandiva for his beautiful circular disk. Wow, circular disk, huh? The all-destroying sun that rises at the end of the Yuga. Oh yeah, you know that thing, right? We all know about the all-destroying sun at the end of the Yuga. Well, that's the thing, man. Every time they talk about this solar flash, all of these ETs, they know about it. They look at how comfortable they are about the idea that, hey, this guy, whoever this person is who's in this beautiful circular disk, he's glowing in this really amazing white light that the sun does normally at the end of the cycle. Well, what we find out is that these beings are on a different cycle of time than we are. And so 25,000 years for us might only be like 25 years for them. So if you only have 25 years to hang out on a given planet in your time before the sun gives off an explosion and you got to get the heck out of there, every 25 years you got to get your mobile home and go find another trailer hitch, my friend. You can't go hook up to that trailer park anymore because it's going to frickin' blow. All right? Well, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the possibility. Here's a guy, he's traveling in a beautiful circular disk. Where have we heard that before? Oh, that's right. Christian ETs. Christian angels also travel in circular disks, don't they? Well, here it is in the Hindu scriptures. It's a time-traveling machine, and this guy looks like the all-consuming fire at the end of the Yuga. Where did they get that from? Well, again, if every 25 years, the sun's going to go, then yeah, you better well believe you're ready for it, and you're going to be aware of what's going on. I'm going to show you another one now. This is Mahadeva. It's amazing. And he also has this look of the solar flash to him. The great god Mahadeva, suspending both prana and apana, the two foremost of the 5 life breaths, by shutting his mouth properly and casting glances on every side, showed himself there. Now, I believe that this is also a metaphor of the sun. And the sun shutting its mouth, if the sun had a constant stream of particles going out, and then it closes its mouth, the particles are going to build up and lead to the solar flash. So I think that's part of the analogy here. Oh, Sage222, thank you. $20, that's awesome. I'm making money, yeah. Possessed of many eyes, that vanquisher of all foes, that lord of even the gods of all gods, suddenly arose from within the pit in which was kept the sacrificial fire. So he's got many eyes. This is a typical thing you see in the Hindu scriptures that then gets described in surviving artwork, which is this image of gods that have all of these faces. There's a face here, face here, face here, and it goes all the way around, and you see all these hands, right? You've seen that before. You know what I'm talking about. Well, that's because these beings, like Mahadeva, they have this amazing glow, like the solar flash, and they describe that to Mahadeva several times in the Hindu scriptures. And wherever you're standing, they are looking at you. The face and the body points towards you. It's like a holographic projection. And this really trips people out. They don't really know what to make out of this. In the ancient tradition, how do you explain somebody who's facing you no matter where you are in a circle around him or her? They don't really know how to explain that. But again, this is based on thought projection. So that's what we're seeing where it says he's casting glances on every side and he has many eyes. That's what they mean. They mean that he has a face that looks at you regardless of where you're standing around him in a circle. So this is a very multidimensional experience if you get to see one of these. Okay? Possessed of the effulgence of 1,000 suns. Wow. And looking like another Samvardika. There you go. The great god Mahadeva smiled gently at Daksha and addressed him and said, "What, O Brahmana, shall I do for you?" Now imagine how freaking amazing it would be to have this being that shows up. Everybody sees it differently. No two people see the same thing. And it's got this incredible light that looks like it's so bright that it's the same thing as the solar flash. And then he says, "What would you like me to do for you?" Well, this is what's going to happen to us. We're going to have beings like this return. It's going to be very psychologically incredible to see this. You get a spiritual change in the way your body feels. When these beings are around, you feel ecstasy like nothing you could have ever possibly imagined, ever, in the life you have now. And I had past lives where I've seen them, and I remember this very vividly. It goes down to your core. And when I read these Bible scriptures, I remember some of the stuff that I saw, and it is unbelievable. With the loud voice and everything else they're doing, it's incredible what happens. Incredible. So it looks like another Samvardika. Then we have this one, very unfortunately named Anus Asanika. Oh my God. Book 13, no wonder, right? It's book 13. Oh, well, it's just book 13, whatever. It's the anus. Okay. Anyway. I would probably have renamed it, but I didn't get to write this. Maybe I did. Who knows? Verily, Mahadeva shone like the Lord of Stars. Well, he is at his full. That's a very strange term. He shines like the Lord of Stars. Again, they're talking about the solar flash. There it is again. The fire born of his energy resembled in effulgence the lightning that flashes amongst clouds. And this is what's so strange. In the Michael prophecies, they're talking about how the people who get the highest graduation off of this first wave of ascension, apparently I get to be one of them. You're going to have the ability to play around with lightning exactly like what's described here. You will be able to shoot it out of your hands. And I've discovered that each finger has a different conduit of lightning that you're going to be able to play with. You can do stuff just with one finger. That's just incredibly, incredibly amazing. So that's what they're describing here, okay? You cannot imagine the power that these beings have when they get to this point. And some of us might reach this point pretty fast after this happens, if you've been doing your spiritual homework. So he resembles lightning that flashes among clouds, and again, it's like the solar flash. It seemed as if 1,000 suns were rising there with Mahadeva, filling every side with a dazzling, glowing light and splendor. The energy of the Supreme Lord looked like the Samvardika fire, which destroys all creatures at the end of the Yuga. Oh yeah, the Samvardika fire that destroys all creatures. We all know about that. It happens every 25 years. We got to get the hell out of here, man. We don't want to be around for this. So wait a minute. He looks like the Samvardika fire? Yeah, it's the same thing again. They describe a period of great tribulation that leads to an ascension. That certainly is what's going on right now. This is a much more appropriately named Vanaparva. No more Anus whatever. And then, O Bharata, the fire called Samvardika, impelled by the winds, appears on an earth that was already been dried to cinder by 7 suns. This appears to be a reference to 7 chakras. It's symbolic, but it sounds like a pole shift. And a solar flash, right? That fire penetrating through the earth, making its appearance even in the lower nether regions, brings great terror to the hearts of the gods, the Danavas, and the Yakshas. So both the evil beings like Rakshas, Yakshas, those are the reptilian types, okay? And then also the good ones. Nobody likes this. It's not like the positive ETs are like, yay, there's going to be a solar flash, let's hang around. No, they're freaked out, as you can see right here. They get great terror when this fire arrives. And O Lord of the earth, consuming the nether regions is also everything upon the earth. The fire destroys all things in a moment. Now, that might be your typical solar flash where it's like hash browns for the surface of the planet. But again, Michael has used this channeling contact I had in the 1990s to tell us that it's not going to be catastrophic. And again, they're playing by the rules. You might not like that it happened through me. Oh, I hate that David Wilcock. He's such a freaking egomaniac. All he ever wants to do is make... I've heard this ever since 1996. Ego and making money is all anybody ever says, right? I'm just teaching you the stuff that I've studied and learned. And I would say if somebody throws us a rope and we can get through all this stuff successfully, that's a wonderful thing. I'm not going to look at that as something bad, okay? But again, this is what would have happened if we hadn't learned our lessons, as Michael is now telling us. Everything would have been destroyed. That fire blazing forth in effulgence consumes the universe with gods, asuras, gandharvas, yakshas, snakes, and rakshasas. So the reptilians are totally vanquished by the solar flash. That's the point there. Snakes and rakshasas are reptilians. There rise in the sky deep masses of clouds looking like herds of elephants and decked with wreaths of lightning that are wonderful to behold. Some of these clouds are the hue of blue lotus, some are the hue of water lily, which is sort of like a purple or pink. Some resemble the filaments of the lotus, some resemble purple, some are yellow as turmeric, and some are like a crow's egg. Wreaths of lightning, wonderful to behold. Therese Wade, again, has donated. Thank you so much, Therese. You're regular. I appreciate that. Wreaths of lightning. Well, what the heck is this? Well, this was something that Corey Good actually had in one of his visions, and sure enough, he was right. He was talking about it being in the aurora borealis arena, and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. If the solar flash hits the surface of the Earth in the atmosphere, it's going to create all these different beautiful colors, which is what you're seeing described here. Why? Because we're going to have a worldwide massive aurora borealis. So much solar particle emissions will be hitting our atmosphere all at the same time when this event occurs that the entire sky is going to turn into rainbow colors. And that's what they were predicting would happen in the Fatima event, where you have a flying disc that shows up in Portugal in 1918, 1917, both years. And 17 is where most of it happened. And in 1917, there was a flying disc that's associated with Christians like Mother Mary, but it's showing you these incredible colored spectra of light across the entire sky in Portugal. Now that's going to be in our film Levitation. It's coming out later this year. We might be doing another film out before then. I'm not even sure what that one is called yet. But I do want to build up the enthusiasm for Levitation because we're going to talk about levitating saints. We're going to talk about this Fatima event, the rainbow colors in the sky. I'm really looking forward to that movie coming out. We've just had a lot of challenges. We're trying to get a narrator, and he can't work until May. I'm not going to tell you who it is yet, but oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I really hope he does it. Okay. So again, colored lights caused by the aurora borealis as the sun does its thing. This I think we will see. Very much so. When fierce and malicious Daityas and Rakshasas, again, reptilians, probably greys is the other thing, that are incapable of being slain by even the foremost of the gods, when those creatures are born on earth, I take my birth in the families of virtuous men, and by assuming a human body, I restore tranquility by exterminating all evil. Wow, this is so amazing. Think about what it's really saying here. I don't even want to cut off of this. I take my birth in the families of virtuous people and I assume a human form. So one of these people could be you. You might be ready to turn into something like Mahadeva. Some people, according to Archangel Michael, are going to get spontaneous ascension activation. You're going to have lightning coming out of your body. You're going to have this booming voice. People will see you everywhere from the same way. You can project whatever you want people to see. You could make yourself literally look like anything you want. Any form that you choose to adopt, you can turn into that if you want to, because your body is much more pliable, malleable. All this stuff becomes a very, very interesting thing. So now we're exactly 1 hour in since I started, and it's perfect because this is kind of in 3 parts, and the second part is Zoroastrian Prophecies. So this all comes back to a contact that happened with Zarathustra, who got anglicized into Zoroaster. The original name was Zarathustra. But the English, they can't pronounce anything, mate. So they just say, oh, it's Zoroaster. It's so crazy, like Burma, right? Myanmar became Burma because they couldn't pronounce Myanmar. It's so funny. I love that kind of stuff. Anyway, Ahura Mazda was a being who is again associated with the same symbology as the Egyptian Ra. Once again, you have the winged disc, which clearly implies that there is a flying saucer involved in this, folks, and the wings just show that the disc is flying. Oh, that's just the sun as it goes across the sky. That's what the skeptical archaeologists say. Okay, well, why is there a guy like standing inside the sun? It kind of looks to me more like a flying craft, okay? And I think that's really what we're seeing. This is a depiction of someone who arrived in a flying saucer. How do you show that the disc is flying? Well, let's put wings on it. It's a great idea. He contacted this individual, Zoroaster. The Vendidad is one of the ancient scriptures of the Zoroastrians, and in the first Fargod, or chapter, this is again something where Zoroaster had this flying disc come down, a being came out, said, I am Ahura Mazda, and proceeded to tell him a bunch of stuff and said, I want you to write this down. And this is how Zoroastrianism got formed. He has an in-person contact with something like Mahadeva coming out of a beautiful circular disc, which is the same exact thing we heard in this Hindu scripture. Same thing. Circular disc. It's all interconnected, folks. And what they're talking about here is the golden age of the ancient Aryans is outlined with their greatest king, Yima Ksheta Yamraj in the Indian Vedas, who banished old age and death. So this is a very, very important point. It is believed that what we now see as Zoroastrianism migrated to Iran and Persia from Siberia. This is what major scholars on Zoroastrianism say. And they also say that Hindu culture migrated into India from Siberia. When you put two and two together, it appears, once again, as the Casey reading said, the Rama civilization was in Siberia. The other civilization was in what we now call Antarctica. There was a pole shift, and both of these areas that were comfortable to live were overrun with ice, and they all became unlivable. And there was an Aryan migration where the Zoroastrians moved to Iran and the Hindus moved to India. But they both appear to share a common point of origin in Siberia, which is this glorified king who was either called Yima or Yama or Yuma. So he's Yima in Zoroastrianism and he's Yama in Hinduism, okay? So there's a lot of scripture I'm really simplifying here, but the amazing thing is go back and look at the Siberian Roswell. We did an episode of this on Ancient Aliens. There was a discovery in the I guess it was in the late 1800s or early 1900s, of something that looked like a rocket in Siberia. They were digging and they found that some miners dug up this thing that looks like a rocket. They didn't know what it was back then, and it had these Hindu-looking, or it had Sanskrit on it. It had Sanskrit inscriptions on the rocket. So when Stalin found out that Roswell had happened after 1947 or 1945, I forget, 1947 I think is when Roswell happens, right? So Stalin was still around, or somebody right after him, and he sends out, but I'm pretty sure it was Stalin, it might have been 1945. I'm trying to get all the details straight, because this is all off the top of my head. But the point was, they went back to this area in Siberia, the Russians did. They dug up the missile. It was a full-blown rocket, and it had unusual propulsion that helped them develop their own UFO technology, and they apparently found this vault of documents. And the documents included stuff from off-planet, including plans on how to build spaceships and things like this. So this was left over from that civilization of Rama that, again, had been comfortable in Siberia until the Earth shifted on its axis. Everybody moved, that's called the Aryan migration, and then you end up with Zoroastrianism in Persia and Hinduism in India. But Zoroastrianism, again, has the same king as Hinduism, so it's believed that they go back to a commonly shared point of origin. Yima or Yama, who banished old age and death. And this was apparently a golden age. These people had incredible abilities. They did not get old. They did not die. They had lightning coming out of them, all this kind of amazing stuff, which we're going to have again. Zarathustra asked Ahura Mazda, "O Ahura Mazda, righteous creator of the corporeal world, who was the first person to whom you taught these teachings?" And he said, "Yima the Splendid, who watched over his subjects, O righteous Zarathustra." So again, that's Yama in Hinduism. "I did first teach the Aryan religion to him prior to you." Interesting. So now these two historians went really crazy and wrote this book called History of Zoroastrianism. You can't really tell from looking at the cover. I bought this thing. It's huge. I mean, it's like a solid 3+ inch thick book. You can't really tell from the picture, but I do have it somewhere. Maybe I'll dig it out at some point. I got boxes of books in my garage. I don't really have any shelf space here. But anyway, Boyce and Grennett are the two people who wrote this book. And the point is, they did the most authoritative deep dive on Zoroastrianism that anybody's ever done. And by doing that, we're able to get down to the core of what did these prophecies actually say about what the Zoroastrians call Phrosokereti, or Frashokereti. I've heard it different ways. Kererti, Kereti, Phraso. There's different ways to pronounce it. But what is Phrosokereti? It literally translates as making wonderful, but let's not get ahead of myself. It's all in slides. Zoroaster's future expectations for this Phrosokereti time were fixed upon our loved and familiar planet Earth. The Earth will be restored to its original perfection, and the kingdom of Ahura Mazda will arrive. And again, these are people in the saucers. The blessed are to live here eternally in his presence, solid flesh on solid ground. So we're not going anywhere. It was an end of history that he foretold, not the end of the world. It's very interesting. Zoroaster's fundamental message was that when the triumph of goodness happens, evil will have been progressively weakened through the concerted efforts of the just. Yeah, that's what we're seeing right now. It's all being exposed. It's taking longer than we like, but it's happening. Human virtues such as justice, faith, liberality, joyfulness will then be increasing throughout the world, and vices such as tyranny, dictatorships, right? Enmity, jealousy, heresy, not believing, having these false or, evil religions, and injustice will all dwindle away. This is really incredible. This is what's going to happen. This is our whole planet is going to change into this. And this is an ancient prophecy from ancient text, predating Christianity. The three wise men were Zoroastrians. They were following the prophecy of the Saoshyant. They followed the light in the sky, which was probably a craft, leading them to the birthplace of Jesus. And they had three gifts. They had frankincense, they had gold, and they had myrrh. Two of those three gifts are incense. And we were just talking last week about how incense is an anti-demonic agent. So isn't it interesting that they gave Jesus the best anti-demonic incense they had from his birth, frankincense and myrrh, to try to keep the negative spirits away? Because remember, he was born in a manger because the emperor at the time was trying to kill every firstborn son because he'd heard that this prophecy of the Messiah being born was happening. And so the frankincense and myrrh was, again, let's make this stable that they're in really nice. Let's smoke it out with some nice incense. Hopefully nobody's going to notice that and come to look for the baby Jesus there. I guess nobody did. Zoroaster perceived the salvation of our world as dependent both upon cosmic influences, cosmic striving, as well as our I don't know if you could hear that. The turkey just gobbled right outside the window. Let's see if I can get him to do it. Did you hear that? There he is. I love it. Very symbolic. The salvation of the world as the turkey gobbles. These two conjoined aspects of his teachings, emphasis on individual responsibility and concern for the whole cosmos, make his doctrine strikingly relevant to the conditions and problems of the Greek Hellenistic age. So the salvation of the world is dependent on the sum of all of our choices, our individual responsibility for the whole cosmos. Zoroastrians also do not demonize wealth. We have this thing called I call it the subconscious Judeo-Christian bias. The reason people get so mad at me, oh my God, David's charging money, is they're used to thinking of the only way you can pursue spirituality is to be monastic and have no possessions. Well, Wouldn't it be cool for the Vatican to set it up that way so that they have all the wealth and anybody else who could have any possibility of divine revelation is prohibited from being able to have assets? Well, in Zoroastrianism, they encourage you to pursue wealth. And actually, that's not a bad thing. I think if you don't build wealth, then how are you going to ever have a comfortable, happy life? It can be very difficult. So the individual responsibility, and it's the sum of all of our individual choices, is exactly what Michael ends up telling us, is that all of us have made enough positive strides that we do not have a pole shift coming. We're not going to have a catastrophic end. Certain individuals here might be trying to create that catastrophe. It's not going to happen. Instead, what we're going to get is what's called the future body. Among Zoroaster's eschatological or end-time ideas was his teaching about the future body, that at the last day the bones of the dead will be clothed again with flesh and reanimated by the soul, which according to Zoroastrianism is existing apart in heaven, hell, or limbo, according to the individual judgment passed upon it at death. So yes, Ahura Mazda was teaching there is something like a hell that you can get stuck in for a while. If you have enough bad karma, you might choose to go and get tortured for a while before you go back to a regular human incarnation. So that's in there too. It's all the same kind of stuff. According to him, each created thing, animate or inanimate, possesses its own indwelling force or spirit, which again, the Edgar Cayce readings call Christ consciousness. Ahura Mazda, which is just their name for God, same thing as Allah or Buddha or Logos, created these spirits first and then clothed them in material forms. At the end of time, there will be a return to that perfection. Well, that's like next year, okay? We're talking about something, all the events that are happening on Earth right now are the immediate precursors to the revelation of our galactic family and the first wave of ascension, according to Michael. And again, I'm going to drill in on those passages specifically this coming weekend in Colorado. We are going to make it available as a streaming, so you don't have to watch it. You can just buy that one talk I'm doing a la carte. Also, Stavatti CEO Chris Beskar is going to be there, and he's promising new disclosures of information. So I told him, don't tell me over the phone. Just tell me once you get here. He's going to be here on Wednesday, and we're going to this conference together. So it's going to be good to see him. I haven't seen him in quite a while in person, but he's going to be disclosing some new things. So those talks are going to be available a la carte at thedisclosuresummit.com/David. It's where you can go. So I'm a little nervous about doing a conference, I admit. I mean, it's like a lot of people try to talk to me. It's a lot of energy. It's a lot of intensity. I get a lot of seduction attempts that, there's things that happen that are very intense. And so it's kind of a cacophony of good and bad and all different things in between. Turkeys are still squeaking. So funny. They're telling me to keep moving. All right, I'll listen. So at the end of time, there will be a return to the perfect spirit that we came from, no longer hidden in materiality. With the blessed entering into the kingdom of Ahura Mazda in the ideal form of a just soul, clad in a body that is now without any blemishes, it has become immortal and undecaying. So this is their teaching about the future body. Now we're going to talk about the eschaton. This is the overall concept of the end of the world, as you can see here by definition. It's also the Greek word for last, the end of time, or the climax of history. And then look at this. Coined by Protestant theologian Charles Harold Dodd, divinely ordained climax of history. Wow, that sounds pretty amazing. Well, now we're going to read from the Zarathustrian Association of North Texas. And they say, Asho Zarathustra, Zoroaster to the Greeks, prophet of the world's oldest revealed religion. Maybe, maybe not. You know, Zoroastrianism, it might be Hinduism because they're supposedly 18,000 years old, but whatever, okay. Lived in remote antiquity, sometime around the dawn of the Iranian Bronze Age, circa 1800 BC. His place of birth was in the ancient land of Aryana Vaja in Central Asia, possibly somewhere around the Aral Sea. Zarathustra preached a monotheistic religion of one supreme God, whose name translates as wise Lord. So when I say Ahura Mazda, that means wise Lord. Okay. His message is positive and life-affirming. It demands not so much belief as the reason and action on behalf of every individual. This is not a prescriptive ethic based on obedience, fear, or love, but rather an ethic of taking personal responsibility, and I really love that. A Zoroastrian is taught to lead an industrious, honest, and charitable life. There is no place for asceticism. In other words, you need to make money. As I said, the generation of wealth is part of the ethos as long as it is achieved with honesty and used for good and charitable purposes. Boom, there you go. Why can't it be that simple? As long as you do it honestly and you're doing good with it, you shouldn't be hated. This is what the teaching actually says, folks. The quintessences of his teachings are embodied in this triad: humata, or good thoughts, hukta, or good words, and huvarshta, or good deeds. Well, that sounds very basic. I mean, it sounds like Don Miguel Ruiz's 4 agreements, or it also sounds like the principles of the Huna. Very good thoughts, good words, good deeds. Okay, it's basic Christianity, in other words. The loftiest ideal for humans is to emulate the Amisha Spentas, or the attributes of the wise Lord Ahura Mazda. Vahumana is good mind. We want to think for ourselves before we believe. We have the freedom to choose between good and evil, and we have the responsibility to reap those consequences. So there's the teaching of karma. Perfect. Asha Vashista is divine law, which embodies righteousness, truth, wisdom, justice, and progress. Every Zarathustri strives to follow the path of Asha in its deepest spiritual sense: righteousness, truth, wisdom, and justice. Well, there's some big justice coming our way, folks, and it's just getting started. So this is all going to be coming to fruition. Kshastra Vairya is divine strength and service leading to the ideal society. The turkeys are still going. Spenta Armaiti, the benevolent spirit, is Ahura Mazda's purity and devotion. I love it. Why wouldn't you want that? Haruvatat, progression and perfection, and Amaratat, immortality and everlasting bliss, are the twin rewards of living a righteous life. So you go through perfection and immortality from this righteous life at the end of the age, which is where we are now. This is what's going to happen. It's all about, again, living righteously, being honest. Zarathustra presents a view of the world in which Ahura Mazda originally creates an ideal existence, which we used to have. That was called the Golden Age, in accordance with the law of Asha. As the world progresses, there is conflict between the forces of good, Spenta Mainyu, and evil, Angra Mainyu. Now, isn't that interesting? Angra. The word angry or anger is a derivation, probably, of this Zoroastrian word for evil. So anger is evil. Yeah, the basic idea in all these teachings is try everything you possibly can and not have arguments. As I said last time, arguments can create these elementals can get in. Elementals are demons that appear in fire or other types of things, but like if you're burning somebody alive, a fire elemental can actually exist in that fire and, grab that person while they're burning and take them somewhere else, theoretically. This is what their religion teaches. So just so you understand what elemental really means. So anger comes from the word for evil out of Zoroastrianism, most likely. In this cosmic drama, we are not bystanders, but rather we are the prime agents on Earth. Through our actions, the ultimate triumph of good over evil is assured. So once again, I really love the individual responsibility. You're not expecting some cosmic beings to show up. It's the transfiguration of plain humans here on Earth that brings about the fulfillment of this prophecy. We become ascension activated. We become Saoshyants or messiahs. The word messiah is plural. Okay, this is what they teach. We are the prime agent through whose actions we triumph over evil. It's us. We have to step up and do this. Nobody else is going to do it. Don't just sit there. The wise Lord gives man not only the freedom to choose between good and evil, but also the responsibility to actively promote good and vanquish evil. We have a responsibility to do this ourselves, and I am doing that today. Through the collective good acts of humanity, the world evolves towards a final resurrection, or frasho kareti. Frasho kareti, that's what it definitely says there, frasho kareti. I want to get the pronunciation right. When all will be in a state of perfection, haruvatat, and everlasting bliss, amaratat. So, again, these prophecies, the Zoroastrian prophecies, have all of that same 25,000-year cycle encoded into it. That's the Graham Hancock, Santayana von Deschen thing. Remember, those two historians, it was in Hancock's book, found 35 different ancient traditions that all had very specific mathematical depictions of a 25,000-year Earth cycle called, as I said before, the precession of the equinoxes. They precede through the night sky 1 degree every 72 years, and after the whole cycle is complete, you now have 25,920 years, at which point we go through a final resurrection where everything is in a state of perfection and everlasting bliss. That sounds a hell of a lot better than the way life is right now. But it's through our own diligent effort as people that we achieve the great perfection, that we become immortal, and that we kickstart Froketi. That's why I love this prophecy, you guys. It's very specific. It's very similar to Christianity. You have a supreme and loving God. You have a heaven and a hell. You have karma, individual judgment. You have the ultimate triumph of good over evil is guaranteed. Strict codes of morals and ethics. There's a messianic figure, in this case plural, coming for a final restoration of Earth. We have a concept of resurrection, a final judgment of all humanity, and that we then jumpstart into life everlasting. And the words Satan, paradise, and amen all come from Zoroastrian origin. That's a lot of similarities, isn't it? It's like, dang, you start looking at this list and you start thinking about it. It's like, wow, there's a lot of stuff going on. And again, the Zoroastrians were the ones that predicted Jesus' arrival and gave him these anti-demonic gifts of frankincense and myrrh. And sure enough, if you study frankincense and myrrh, they both have pineal activating qualities. They both have chemicals in them called sesquiterpenes, which some researchers believe actually enhances your pineal gland activity. That might be part of how the anti-demonic protocol works. This is really, really cool. Then I found another thing on encyclopedia.com on Froketi that goes into even more detail, and it's really fascinating. The Avestan term Froketi, making wonderful, or the rehabilitation of existence. So you can translate it either way. The world is made wonderful. This is the concept of the Christian rapture. But again, they're saying we have to build into it ourselves. But then it will suddenly happen at a certain point. This corresponds to Froshgird, the Middle Persian term for the last judgment or final day of our existence, before this other thing happens. The Avestan term derives from the expression to make existence splendid. With this concept, Zarathustra abolished an archaic ideology of cosmic cycles and of eternal returns through reincarnation modeled on atemporal archetypes, proclaiming instead the expectation of and hope for an eschaton. So again, the idea here is maybe people who were looking at Hinduism and didn't really understand Samvara fire were thinking that we're just trapped in reincarnation, it's just going to keep happening forever, there's no way out. Whereas, instead of an eternal reincarnation in cosmic cycles, there is an end, there is an eschaton, and this therefore creates a linear concept of cosmic time, which this author is calling an innovation in religious thought having enormous influences on humanity's subsequent spiritual history. So, Boyce and Grennett, the guys that wrote that book, A History of Zoroastrianism, would be in the same category, wherein they believe that this whole thing came from Zoroastrianism, this idea of the solar flash, the end of the age, and everybody else copied them. But if you go back to Santayana and von Deschen, there's 35 different ancient cultures that all had the 25,000-year code in there. They have the solar flash coded in there. It's just a common point of origin all over the world. So Zoroastrianism is just one of the places we can find it. But when you roll up your sleeves, isn't it amazing what they're telling us? I mean, this is so interesting. The concept of this sudden, ecstatic transfiguration of everyone on Earth. The final event will be completed not because of a cosmic ritual, but by the will of the Creator. The resurrection of the body and the last judgment are essential and significant aspects of Froketi. So once again, we build into it ourselves. It's not just on any specific date, like December 21st, 2012, or whatever else. You know, and again, Michael said that December 26, 2020 represents the Mayan calendar end date from the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. This is almost to the day of when the inoculations started coming out. Very interestingly. And apparently, though, the whole COVID process has prevented us from going through this catastrophic pole shift. But 2025 is the end of the line. That's where we get the first wave of ascension. According to Michael, we only have 1 year to wait. So I'm going to keep talking about this between now and then. This is what I'm here to do. This is my job. So it's going to be completed by us. And we go through a resurrection of body and a last judgment. Michael says this too. There is going to be meetings with these beings in person. And they're going to talk to you. And you better be ready to talk, because you're going to have to. And you want to be able to be happy about how spiritual and loving you were during your life. You don't want to find out that they don't really like the way you lived your life that much. It wouldn't be a very fun thing, believe me. In the Gatha, and you still have time to turn it around. That's always the message. Today, you could turn your whole life around. If you don't think you're nice enough, you can turn it around today. In the Gathas, the Froketi is felt to be near. Later Zoroastrianism developed an eschatological doctrine situating it further off in time within the concept of a great year. Wow. Divided into 3 periods, each millennium in length. I don't think that's right, but the great year part is the 25,000-year cycle. Each of them begins with the coming of a Saoshyant, a savior born of the seed of Zarathustra. That's the word Messiah. At the end of the great year, you have the coming of the Saoshyant, the Messiah. The last of these cycles will be the Saoshyant par excellence, the maker of the final Froketi. Other scholars explain, as I said, there are multiple Saoshyants. The Froketi is described in one of the hymns of the Avesta, Yasht 19. It declares that Druj, the lie, the principle or deity of evil, will be brought down. And so, you know, it's interesting that Druj and Jinn kind of sound alike, and Jinn is also a Muslim word for evil spirit. So Druj, or the principle of evil. Evil will be brought down. That sounds really good. I want that. I would really like that. The diva Ashma, or fury, will be destroyed by a bloody mace. And again, there is a cult that Satanism arose out of. It was the Thuggee cult in India. And so they had certain assassination techniques that they used involving strangling people. And they used handkerchiefs. And so I talk about this in the Michael Prophecies, book 7, and some other books too, how the Saracens were a group of Muslims that migrated into Spain in around 1000 AD. And this is where some of the original black magic stuff comes in. It comes in from this thing called the Two-Horned Cult, which was sort of a strange fusion of Islam and this Hindu assassin technology. They had both. But it was, again, the Saracens were were Muslims. They came into Spain, and this is how the European culture first started apparently to have these things happen. So the ceremonial dagger, the athame, that is a word that comes from the Saracens. All this kind of stuff about witches riding brooms, that comes from the Saracens. They called it the Two-Horned Cult, most likely because their practices led to the visible manifestation of negative entities that often do have horns. So this is the evil that's now being dealt with. It's going to be brought down. Diva is a name for one of the thug women, destroyed by a bloody mace. And we still use that term for Hollywood starlets today, which is interesting. The diva akamana, or bad thought, will be overcome. Hunger and thirst will be defeated. I guess I should probably drink some more water. And the great god of evil, Angra Mainyu, deprived of his power, will be driven to fly away. Well, this is talking about, you know, nasty, negative ETs. And we do want them to leave. We don't want them to hang around. So now we're going to go into Encyclopedia Ironic. We're now up to 4,000 live viewers. It takes a little while to get going. But this Froketi, again, they really tell us some amazing stuff here in Encyclopedia Ironic. The only more explicit description of the events believed to take place in Froketi is found in the Zamyad Yast, number 19, at the end of the initial 3 sections as well as the end of the final one. The agents who will make life wonderful, or Frasha, are the creatures of the wise lord Ahura Mazda, 1910, the Amisha Spentas, 1915, the spiritual and corporal Yazatas, those who make things excellent, Frasho Karitar, and saviors or Saoshyants. and above all, a single Savior, the victorious one, among all of the Messiahs or Saoshyants. 1989 is the scripture passage. His name could be seen as Stavatti Aerospace, 1992, and his companions, 1995. So these are just scriptural titles, but again, don't get lost in all the citations. Remember, the point is, the agents who will make life wonderful are the Saoshyants. They are human beings, and they are led by a single Savior, the victorious one among all the Saoshyants, which is most likely the second coming of Christ. So it's all the same stuff, and the Zoroastrians knew who he was, and they showed up there because they were waiting for him. So this is really, really fascinating how all these different pieces interconnect, and this whole point is, wait a minute, people on Earth are going to turn into messianic saviors? Yes, that's exactly what it's saying. And there will be a single Savior who is victorious among all the others. It is clearly indicated what making life wonderful or frasha implies. Our bodies, and again, this could happen as early as next year, folks, so now's a good time to try to be more loving. You know, it's not a good time to want to be a jerk. Now's a good time. If you can't get along with other people, you keep having arguments, let's figure out a way to stop that, okay? Let's figure out a way to be nice. It's very, very, very important, actually, that you learn to do this. Life will become ageless. Your body will not decay, rot, or putrefy. You will live forever. You will thrive forever, and you will rule at will, meaning you have telekinetic power over nature. You can do all kinds of interesting things. The dead will rise, revived by the one who does not decay, and life will be created again in an excellent and perfect way. Again, making the world perfect. Froketi. Life will be created new, in perfect, ageless, non-decaying, light body form. Lies and falsehoods and evil will be driven out of this creation, back to the place where it had come for its destructive purpose. Stavatti Aerospace will emerge from Lake Hamun. The Avesta is Kasaola, or Kasaoya. Kasaoya, yeah, that's what it is, Kasaoya. So Stavatti Aerospace will emerge from Lake Hamun, Kasaoya, wielding the victorious weapon which other heroes bore before him. It's probably something like the Dorje that you see in the Hindu scriptures. It's this weird little power thing. He holds onto it and lightning is coming out. Okay? Other heroes bore before him, and he will drive falsehood out of the world of truth. And this is from Hinsi 1995, is where all this material was taken. With his gaze of insight and strength, he will render the whole corporeal world indestructible. Wow. His companions will advance. These are all the messiahs, Saoshyants, and Asma will flee before them. Good thought, or Vahumana, overcomes evil thought, or Akamana. That sounds awesome. The rightly spoken word, Eregzuoa Vak, overcomes the falsely spoken word, Misha Oksta Vak. Wholeness, Haruatat, and immortality, Amaretat, overcome both hunger, sud, and thirst, Tarsna. And finally, Angra Mainyu, see Ariman, or Satan, anger, again, Angra. The word anger is derived from Satan. Anger is evil. You don't want to stay angry. It's just a call to action, but then you got to handle it peacefully. Angra Mainyu will retreat powerlessly. So this is a very exciting prophecy. They all pretty much say the same stuff, and again, they all had the 25,000-year cycle, they all had the solar flash, and it's a very, very fascinating thing that we're now seeing. So then Revolvi.com says this, on Earth, the Saoshyant will bring about a resurrection of the dead in bodies they had before they died. This is followed by a last judgment through ordeal. The Yazatas, Aryaman, and Atar will melt the metal in the hills and the mountains, and molten metal will then flow across the earth like a river. Now again, this is a metaphor of the solar flash, that it's so powerful that the mountains themselves will just melt. Apparently this does happen. All mankind, both living and resurrected dead, will be required to wade through this river of light, but for the righteous or Ashavan, it will seem to be like a river of warm milk, while the wicked will be burned. The river will then flow down to hell, where it will annihilate Angra Mainyu and the last vestiges of wickedness in the universe. So even the negative entities get totally wiped out by this thing. After this happens, humankind will become like the Amisha Spentas. We do not need food. We never get hungry or thirsty. We don't need any weapons, and there is no possibility of bodily injury. The material substance of our bodies will be so light that we no longer cast a shadow. Maybe, maybe not. I'm willing... Oh, I had it on myself. I'm so sorry. I was supposed to be on the slide. Let's go back to the slide then. So, humankind will become like the Amisha Spentas, living without food, hunger, thirst. Material substance of the body so light as to cast no shadow. Sorry I was on myself. I got a little distracted. Anyway, this sounds very, very awesome. All humanity will speak a single language and belong to a single nation without borders. That sounds great. All will share a single purpose and goal, joining with the divine for perpetual exaltation of God's glory. Amazing. So then I want to show you that even in the Egyptian Greek tradition, we still get this solar flash. Same kind of thing. And they again expect that it's going to lead to a world of paradise. Plato, in his Timaeus and Critias, in one of those two books, he writes this. I forget which one it is. After the usual interval, which means 25,000 years, the stream from heaven comes pouring down like a pestilence. That word means disease. So he's talking about a solar flash as if it was a stream from the sun, stream from heaven that pours down onto the earth. And again, the Zoroastrian metaphor was of molten metal sweeping over the mountains. Same kind of idea. After the 25,000 years, the usual interval. When this happens, it leaves only those of you who are destitute of letters and education. You have to begin all over again like children, knowing nothing of what happened in ancient times, either among us or among yourselves. As for those genealogies you just now recounted to us, Solon, they're no better than tales of children. In the first place, you only remember that there was one flood, Atlantis, but actually there have been many previous floods, like the one 50,000 years ago. In the next place, you do not know that there formerly dwelt in your land the fairest and noblest race of people who ever lived, the Amisha Spentas. Once again, same concept, ascended beings. You and your whole city are descended from a small seed or remnant of these glorified people who survived. And this was unknown to you because for many generations the survivors of that destruction died and left no written word. Well, this is very, very heavy stuff. So the proof of all the things that I've been telling you comes in interplanetary climate change. And this goes back to stuff that I had in my book Source Field. So again, the idea here is that I'm going to tell you that we went through all this NASA information. We found incredible validating data to tell us that, in fact, all these ancient prophecies are right. If the sun is going to give off a big flash of light, that must imply that there's some type of energetic charge up going on in our solar system. It would have to. The charge is going to eventually dissipate, but it's building up. So my theory was, well, shouldn't we see energetic changes throughout the whole solar system? And if you've heard me say these things before, it's always good to review them because it's so amazing. In December 2009, NASA said, yeah, we're heading into some strange, very hot, very magnetic, dense cloud. Here's the article where this came out. Voyager makes an interstellar discovery where it says the solar system is passing through an interstellar cloud that most physics, not mine and Michael's, but most physics says should not exist. In my physics, we're expecting the cloud to be there because it's where all the geometry intersects at the end of the 25,000-year orbit. I talked about this in previous videos. If you were watching them, you remember I had a pentagon, and that was the Mayan calendar, 5,125 years between each corner of the pentagon in a circle. The total length is 25,000 years. And each time you hit one of those corners, there's a solar flash, according to this glaciologist, Dr. Lonnie Thompson. Well, we're at the point of the end of the triangle, the end of the pentagon. They're all coming together right now, 25,000 years. And their points create this cloud of very hot, very magnetic energy that changes our DNA, just like the frog changes into salamander eggs. And then they become salamanders. This cloud is going to change us into a new type of human. The ancient prophecies told us this was going to happen. Now we have the scientific proof. So here it says, same thing, Voyager spacecraft solved the mystery. We're passing through this interstellar cloud. You can read, just exactly what they said. I'm not lying to you. Using data from Voyager, we discovered a strong magnetic field just outside the solar system, according to lead author Merav Ofer. This magnetic field holds our interstellar cloud together and solves a long-standing puzzle of how it exists at all. So it's really nice to see a woman in science. And my ex-wife Elizabeth, she loved talking about Dr. Merov-Ofer. And again, that brightness in the front of the teardrop-shaped thing there, that's the cloud she's talking about. And that teardrop is our heliosphere, which is the magnetic field created by the sun around our planets. This is her paper, prestigious journal, Nature, Strong, Highly Tilted Interstellar Magnetic Field Near the Solar System. Boom. It's absolutely real. The strength and orientation of magnetic fields in the interstellar medium near the heliosphere has been poorly constrained, da-da-da-da-da. And she found this amazing thing. And then in 2015, they sent another probe out called IBEX, and they found out that the gas was even hotter than they thought. So here's where we're going to read about that. 8 papers highlight the interstellar helium measurements taken by IBEX and the Joint European Space Agency and NASA Ulysses spacecraft, which launched in 1990. So I'm still reading here, but I want you to see a different angle for a while, right? Gotta do something, make it fun. These are the only 2 spacecraft have directly measured the local interstellar flow of these helium atoms. Both data sets now affirm that the local interstellar flow is significantly hotter than believed previously, based on the Ulysses observations alone, and provide insight into the direction the heliosphere is moving through the local material in the galaxy, as well as how fast it's traveling. So then in 2012, we also learned, oh, and by the way, the heat is so massive, it's like 1,000 degrees Celsius, or maybe even higher than that. It's very, very high. Anyway, it's very, very interesting stuff. In May 2012, the cloud was discovered to have more magnetic energy than we expected. That says May 10th, 2012 up at the top. IBEX reveals this missing magnetic boundary at the edge of our solar system. So this is, again, the IBEX and then what they saw there, the bow shock. Scientists believe this asymmetrical wave, which we just looked at, notice that it's actually bent and it's going down. It's not directly aligned with the interstellar flow. It tilts downwardly. Well, this is something we didn't know until recently. Scientists believe this asymmetry is caused by the force and direction of magnetic fields ramming into the heliosphere from outside, the same way if your hand pushes on a balloon, you can push it out of shape. This was the first clue that, boom, there's a strong magnetic field exerting pressure on the outskirts of the solar system, just like I've been telling you. Okay. Independently, IBEX has seen a well-defined band or ribbon at the edge of the heliosphere believed to be defined by this external magnetic field. And that band is probably, again, geometric and part of these energy fields we're talking about. They're going to change our DNA and are changing our DNA. Other studies have helped quantify the magnitude of the magnetic field, showing it is on the very strong end of what they ever thought could even be possible. We've seen one after another signatures of very strong magnetic fields in our galactic environment, according to Nathan Schwadron, a space scientist at the University of New Hampshire, Durham. That magnetic field influences the structure of the heliosphere and the boundaries themselves. So it's very, very strong. One signature after another. That leads us into a whole new paradigm. So again, this charged energy at the front, the termination shock, it's because we're heading into this cloud. Most people are not aware of this, but it's creating this very bright, luminous energy as we go through it that you can now pick up with these various satellites and measure its magnetic strength, measure its heat, etc. So this is just giving you lots of different views of how it's been illustrated. And it kind of looks like a fortune cookie. This is some of the stuff that we got from Dr. Merov-Ofer and others. It has these kind of trails coming off of it. It almost looks like a croissant. Who would have known that the solar system was French, my friend? But it turns out that it is. Oh, it looks like a croissant. I got to have some fun talking for a couple hours, you know? I mean, give me a break. What if other nearby stars hit the cloud of this thing first, as I said? That could happen. The Proxima Centauri might have had a solar flash before we did. I've talked about this many times before. What if they hit the peak of the cloud first? Well, there you go. The sun's closest neighbor just had a massive solar flash. Proxima Centauri. This was in 2018. And it said, I'm not going to go through all of it because this is a big discussion. Scientists discovered a flare off of the sun's closest stellar neighbor, Proxima Centauri. They're hoping that they could have had life on Proxima b, but now this could have killed everything off. Oh my gosh. Everybody's hash browns. Study author Alicia Weinberger from Carnegie used data from the Atacama Large Millimeter Array, or ALMA, dozens of radio dishes in the Chilean desert. It's a basic radio telescope. You've seen it. This new analysis implied that the star actually released a flare that lasted 1 minute, 1,000 times brighter than the star's usual shine, perhaps 10 times brighter than the most powerful solar flares from our own sun ever recorded. And, as you've heard me say before, it happened on approximately Christmas Day 2012, December 25th, maybe a little closer to December 24th. But right on Christmas, only 3-4 days away from the Mayan calendar end date, we had a solar flash on the star closest to us. It reaches us in 2016 in March, and if you backdate 4.242 years, it turns out that it happened on the Mayan calendar end date. So there's all these ancient prophecies, and they're saying messiahs are going to appear. They're saying the Savior is going to appear. This sounds very Christian. It sounds like the second coming of Christ. We know around when it's supposed to happen, 2012. Now, Michael said the first wave is 2025, next year. We're going to see human extraterrestrials appearing like Mahadeva, beings like with that level of power, perhaps. And in 2012, exactly when all these ancient prophecies told us something was going to happen, we had a solar flare 1,000 times brighter than usual next door. Imagine that. Let me read some of your comments just for fun. I've been talking a long time. If you donate all of your donations today to Gaza, I will believe you, David. I respect your knowledge, but I don't know if you care about them. I've listened to all your videos and a few live. Yes, of course, I'm very concerned about what's going on in Gaza. And the best thing I can do is to donate my time. I don't have any money. All of my money is being used to pay my bills. There's no excess money right now. However, by doing these collective meditations, we can reduce this. I am very concerned about what is going on, and so is the Alliance, but we're going to get to that in a little bit. Okay? Anyway, that's what happens when you go wading around in the comments. Let's see if I can find something that's more fun than that. David has projects to help and advance humanity at hand, according to Iwan Gwilym. Yes, that's true. Zach Laney, thank you. Blessings, David. Always do your best. Releasing a flare for an entire minute, Eagle Dove 9 says, is a really long time. Based on those things I've seen on suspicious observers, they last only a second. Uh-oh, now everybody is going to start chatting. Hug Dave, that's pure evil. Give him money or I won't believe in you. Ha ha, you are evil, bro. Okay, well, it takes one to know one. That's all I'm going to say there. If you think I'm evil because I can't donate money that I don't have, I'm sorry. I'm donating time, and we're going to get to that anyway later on. So there's so many contentious things going on in today's world. Anyway, let's get back to this. What would happen if we had a 10 times increase, never mind 1,000? Well, it would be catastrophic, just like these prophecies said. And our sun is building up to something. All the top solar flares have occurred just since 1989. And again, right around now is probably a good halfway point in the... If you want to pause it, go take a bathroom break, come back, now's a great time to do it. I'll just put that out there. Or if you want to watch it in 2 installments over 2 days, that would be a good thing too. Here we go. I'm going to try to keep this less than 3 hours. So the Carrington event happened between September 1st and 2nd in 1859. It's good to remember that. 1859. At the time, we had telegraph lines, and this solar flash was so intense that everything melted down. Everything here on Earth, all the telegraph, all the electronics, they all melted down. And so this is the threat that we have of an solar flash. So that could affect everybody's life in a very negative way. In other words, we don't want this catastrophe to happen. And so the best tools that we have is the consciousness of the power of prayer, which we're going to be using, the meditation effect to reduce global crime, fatalities, terrorism by 72%. And we do want to bring all the wars to an end. That has always been my goal. I am not wanting to see anything last. That's the main reason why I keep showing up every week. If I didn't show up, then I don't care enough. And right now, it's a very important time. So again, the Carrington event led to this shocking thing happening with all the telegraph lines melting and burning. And when we see that some of the all the most powerful solar flares recorded on spaceweather.com, well, a lot of them are happening in the last few years, 2003, 2001, 89, 2003, 2005. So the sun's activity is heating up. We had a major event sequence from the sun in March 1989 that occurred, where an X-15 flare, pictured here, and it has a very interesting tetrahedral geometry, by the way. This happened on March 6th, and it caused a proton flow to the Earth until March 13th. And so this is kind of a view of what would be happening as this is occurring. That's the Earth's magnetic field on the right. So these protons have to go in through the magnetic field. They kind of corkscrew their way in. And this actually caused an 8-degree twitch in the Earth's axis. Holy crap. The most substantial change since 1952, directly after a solar flare. Most people would not make that connection, but it did happen. This also caused the complete collapse of the Canadian power grid, just like we saw in the Carrington event, and Scientific American covered this story. 20 years ago, Earth was blasted with a massive plume of solar plasma, March 13th, 2009. And it happened on the 13th, a scary 13th. Violent space weather treated many to a fantastic display of colorful aurora borealis, but the damaged power grid left 6 million Canadians in the dark. So this is why this is a very pressing concern for us today. If there were to be another solar flash, we could lose all of our electricity, and everything could become like Gaza overnight. And that's a very, very significant danger. So we do have to take this seriously. 2 decades ago in 1989, one of the most extreme examples of space weather in modern times racked the planet. Space weather comes primarily from the sun, which constantly sends particles and energy Earth's way via the so-called solar wind. Occasionally, however, the sun also belches a billion-ton plume of superheated plasma or ionized gas, known as a coronal mass ejection, or CME. If this massive bubble of plasma and radiation is aimed right at the Earth, it can pose a serious threat to satellites and even power grids on the ground, along with modern civilization depending on their electricity. On March 10, 1989, a CME about the size of 36 Earths erupted from the sun's roiling surface and ripped through space at 1,000,000 miles an hour. 2 days later, the gas cloud crashed against Earth's magnetosphere. This blast from the sun severely disrupted the magnetosphere and set off a geomagnetic superstorm, again including an 8-degree pole shift. So that proves there is a connection between solar activity and pole shift. The Earth's magnetic field is directly tied in with solar activity. NASA warns of a space Katrina radiation storm. Ill solar winds blow nobody any good. Boy, there's a lot of places I could take that. There's so many comedy places I could take that. But I'm just not going to do it because I don't need to. You can think about them for yourself. Maybe you'll come up with something better than mine. The state of play, free research. Oh yeah, all this is lining up really well. Blow nobody any good. A study found by NASA has flagged up yet another terrible hazard for those no longer able to get excited about nuclear war, pandemics, terrorism, climate change, economic meltdown, or asteroid strikes. Top science brain boxes say even if the human race survives all these, there's a serious risk that civilization could be brought crashing to its knees by a sudden high-intensity solar storm. Well, that's what they're expecting. This is their religion. They've been expecting this the entire time. We also see the sun's magnetic field has more than doubled since the beginning of the 20th century, as discovered by Dr. Mike Lockwood, who is from Rutherford Appleton National Labs in England. 230% increase since 1901. How did the sun's magnetic field get twice as strong? It's because of interstellar space moving through the sun, causing this energetic charge up. It's all interconnected. Then we find out we're now experiencing the greatest solar activity in over 1,000 years, as you see here from Dr. Ilya Usoskin. This is from ice core samples, and then somebody else went in and found out it was the greatest in 8,000 years. This is Dr. Sami Solanki. So 8,000 years is a really long time, and the last time it got that high was 11,000 years ago. Look at the graph. Years BP, that's the time of the fall of Atlantis. So there's a solar flash associated with the fall of Atlantis. Now this is based on so many different ice core samples from all over the world. It is an absolute scientific fact that the solar activity is ramping up like crazy because that's where the red is on the right. Nobody can deny that. If you are, you're just not paying attention to science. What would solar activity do when it reaches this high? Well, we already know. It has these solar flashes. Could this increased solar activity have a direct effect on our planets? Yes. So we're going to start with Mercury and Venus. I'm going to try to blow through these pretty fast. Messenger flew by and saw a different magnetic field than Mariner 10. The magnetic field of Mercury was generally quiet but had some significant pressure in its magnetosphere. So this is something that first talked about that 2008. NASA's spacecraft streams back surprises from Mercury. They thought it was once similar to Earth's moon, but it has a very different magnetosphere from the one they discovered and sampled more than 30 years ago. And then here it says, this is not the planet we expected, Dr. Sean Solomon. Magnetic twisters. After 1 year, 2009 now, the planet Mercury is far more active than we thought with magnetic tornadoes. Thank you, Liviu Sokolevici. I think I pronounced that right. You got a donation there. Thank you. With twisters that dance across the surface. So yeah, that's magnetic tornadoes. That's not something we ever noticed before. Now the blue colors actually show you where all the new magnetic fields are. How strongly the dynamics of the planet's magnetic field solar wind interaction have changed since Mercury in 2008, just 1 year ago. So all this blue stuff is all these new magnetic fields that Mercury simply did not have before, and now it does. It's very, very interesting and curious. Okay, so now we're going to go to Venus, stunning changes of Venus. This is the green glow. It's activated oxygen molecules on the dark side caused by energetic charge up. There's been a 2,500% increase in this green glow. You can see it in this sequential graph here. And here's a nice animation of the surface of Venus, but we're talking about a dramatic decline now in sulfur gas. It's actually getting more oxygen, just like we saw, and that in turn is oxidizing the sulfur and making it go away. Well, this was very strange. In 1997, they measured the plasma coming off of Venus is 60,000% longer than it was originally. This was from 70,000 kilometers, now detected at 45 million. And it's the same with every planet. Now we're going to look at Mars real quick. It had clouds, ozone grow on it between 75 and 97 that we'd never seen before. There's an example. 200% thicker atmosphere caused the mirror on the Mars Surveyor probe to bend back in September 1997. They were built to withstand a certain degree of atmospheric pressure. The probe encountered double the anticipated atmospheric density, which Mars isn't supposed to have. The arm bent back and the photo mission got delayed into 1998. So that's the image of the Mars probe. And here's another, it's very hard to dig things up on this, but this one was from 7. A glitch causes a 1-year delay in Mars's mapping mission. Scientists had hoped to begin charting the surface next March, but a small fracture in a hinge between the Mars Global Surveyor and a solar panel has required them to fly a slower flight path. And that's caused by atmospheric pressure, as you read in. Well, if you look at this, we're seeing the ice caps of Mars having global warming. They're actually melting. If you pause it and look at left to right, you can see that the ice is definitely melting. This is over the course of 1 year. So they're calling it global warming. Another really strange thing was in 2001, Mars was engulfed by a planet-wide superstorm. And look at that. It's just a week before September 11th. So right before September 11th, the planet of war turned blood red. And this may be, again, because, as the ancient teachings say, the planets are connected to our consciousness. And when this war was about to happen on Earth in the form of 9/11, our collective blood boiling, our anger, shows up on the planet of war a week before. It's very, very weird. And this is how the torsion field science works. It goes backwards in time. Time is not a factor. We had an aurora around Mars in 2015, spotted by MAVEN, as you can see right here. That's unusual, right? That's not supposed to happen. It's called unexpected and strange. Auroras are caused by charged particles from this new cloud. For 5 days before December 25th, Mars gave NASA scientists a Christmas light show. MAVEN detected an ultraviolet glow in Mars's northern hemisphere. This wasn't expected to be there. It's especially surprising because of how deep it goes into the atmosphere, much deeper than Earth or elsewhere on Mars, according to Arnaud Stepin. The electrons producing it must be very energetic. There you go. It's new stuff. Now we're going to go through Jupiter. There's so much stuff on Jupiter. I could spend hours on this. I found this book called Jupiter in 2004, which is pictured here. They were publishing PDFs of this online that were unsecured before they released it. And that's how I found all this, because I was doing keyword searches on Google from Cambridge Planetary Science. So all this data, a lot of this data came from this book. Jupiter grew a plasma torus that you can see here of sulfur ions. It was not even visible prior to 1974. But then between 79 and 95, it got 200% thicker, which they say, yeah, it's stronger than expected. So this wobbling motion is just how it normally spins. In 95, the atmosphere becomes hundreds of degrees hotter than anticipated. If this happened on Earth, we'd be very screwed. Again, that's in this book. And I'm quoting from it in Chapter 1. A central theme emerging in the discussion of the middle and upper atmosphere is the temperature. In the thermosphere, a top question is about the temperature itself. Why is it now hundreds of degrees hotter than we thought, based on the same theory that works for Earth and Titan? Radiation emissions increased by 25% between 79 and 95. And this is in Chapter 27. The synchrotron radiation emission intensity levels during Galileo in 95 were 25% higher than Pioneer in 1979. So, again, energetic charge up. Nobody talks to you about this. Why does it have to be me? Well, I'm happy to do it. You see, it doesn't bother me that I'm actually talking about this stuff. I'm happy to be the one talking about this stuff, but it's fascinating. Prediction of massive global warming in 2000 by this particular scientist, Dr. Philip Marcus, where he looks at these three ovals and he says in 97, you can see in that little black and white photo, there's three of them. They merge into one by 2000. He believes that this is like a hole that allows heat to escape. And if you have three holes and then you only have one, less heat can escape and the planet's going to get hotter. So he predicted from this that Jupiter would warm by 18 degrees over the next decade, and he was absolutely correct. He also noted that the great red spot color has finally changed to something like salmon. So this is the way the great red spot used to look. Remember our ancient prophecies and the making wonderful, Froketi, solar flash? What the hell happened to the great red spot? It ain't even red anymore. It's the great pea soup spot or the great puke spot. I don't know what you call it. Doesn't look very good. Dr. Marcus's prediction of global warming was proven correct as early as 2008, where sure enough, there's a global upheaval and raging thunderstorms. These are hot spots where the arrows point that they had never seen before. A dramatic planet-wide disturbance that has yet to be explained. And it's tied in, second paragraph, with a so-called global upheaval on Jupiter. In order to get this appearance of the storms in their simulations in a computer, they had to increase the water vapor to 300 times more than Galileo measured. Well, where does the water come from? Probably the sun. And they're saying that these storms signal massive climate change. In September 2016, we see these unexpected massive storms occurring at the polar regions. Unexpected is the word there on CNN. That means it wasn't what they wanted to see. It violates all their sacred cow scientific models. NASA spacecraft Juno sent back the first ever images of Jupiter's North Pole, photographs revealing storm systems and weather activity unlike anything we've ever seen before on any other gas giants. It's bluer in color up there than other parts of the planet, and there are a lot of storms, said Scott Bolton, principal investigator. Saturn is a hexagon at the North Pole, he also noted. There is nothing on Jupiter that anywhere near resembles that. So this is really cool because what we see is the picture of these storms. They're unexpected. The whole planet is doing all this weird stuff. And look at all these round dots around the equator. They're all white dots, and they're all geometrically spaced. And this, again, ties in with my geometric model. This is something we would expect to see as the vortex points caused by hidden geometric energy patterns inside the planet, as I just said. So there you go. That's really, really fascinating. It's as if there's some type of geometric activation occurring throughout Jupiter as a whole. Jupiter's moon Io is very close to the planet. It's very hot, and it's believed to be almost molten. But what we saw between 94 and 95 is there was this massive change in the surface. And I'll show you that picture again, but we're going to read you to it first. Io's surface had undergone only subtle changes since Voyager 2 in 1979, but then in 1995, in only 16 months, there's this huge bright spot that appears again, just like we saw on Jupiter, exactly at the equator. Huge volcanic eruption is apparently what caused this. They believe that is all made by sulfur. The white dot is sulfur, but this explosion happens precisely on the equator, and nobody had ever seen anything like this. It's a huge change on Io. And as I said, it's got a geometric position, which we could interpret as, in this case, the octahedron is one of the ones that delivers vortexes right on the equator. So that could be what we're seeing. Just 1 year later, in 96, they had a very significant change on Io, as we see here. The changes we are seeing are dramatic. The colors of material on the ground and their distribution has changed substantially since Voyager in 1979. Then the ionosphere becomes 1,000% higher. What? Scientists participating in NASA's Galileo mission have discovered that Galileo flew through a dense, high-altitude atmosphere during its encounter with Io. It suggests that Io's atmosphere varies in time and is made of volcanic gas lofted to very high altitudes. So there you go. And they say, yep, it was unexpected, as usual. They detected a very dense region of ionized oxygen, sulfur, and sulfur dioxide at 555 miles above the surface. It has to be pumped into that area by the volcanic activity. The plume was only believed to extend only a few hundred kilometers before this. But now we're at 555 miles. No one expected to see this at 555-mile altitude. It was supposed to be only 30 to 60 miles high. So what the hell's going on here? It's like a 10 times increase, more than that. The surface became 200% hotter. Where did that heat come from? Hottest surfaces on the surface of Jupiter's moon Io, and I go through all that. It's in there. So 3 times hotter than the surface of Mercury, and yeah, we're surprised we can't explain it. More than double the highest temperatures recorded on the surface of Io by Voyager spacecraft in 1979. What the hell is going on? Scientists were surprised, and they don't yet know how to explain it. Well, that's going to be a very common theme. Same thing with Europa, and this again was in the Jupiter book. Significantly brighter after 2003. What you see on the left in this image is what they thought it was going to look like, and then what you see on the right is what it actually looks like. Whoa! It's a hell of a lot brighter. It's crazy. It's crazy. This is out of chapter 19. A more complex pattern of brightness emission than we would have expected. There you go. The expected limb glow is there, plus a much brighter region that we did not expect. Wow, what is going on? It's because the whole solar system is charging up and getting brighter. Okay? In Europa's orbit, same thing. Plasma Taurus. And here it was in 2003. Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab researchers discover massive gas cloud around Jupiter. I would say don't call these numbers. Don't troll these guys. Somebody's going to be knocking on your door. Don't do that. Just word to the wise. I'm just going to put that out there. You can do with it what you want. Consider it free advice from David Wilcock. Don't troll NASA. They probably wouldn't like you very much if you did that. Okay, so it's called Surprisingly Dense. And sure enough, it grew out of nowhere. And then in the moon Ganymede, which is the 4th of the big moons, okay, the massive brightness increase once again, over 200% brighter. And you can see where the brightness is in this picture, again from the book Jupiter. Some areas are over 1,000% brighter in this time period. So this is from chapter 19 from the same book. Voyager measured a glow of 10 to 40 Rs. But then when Hubble looked at it, it went up to 100 Rs, suggesting more than the moon's own plasma sheet electrons are involved to excite this glow. They don't know what the heck it is. They really don't. It's even more evident when the explanation is sought for hot spots of intense auroras, again over 1,000% brighter in some areas, 300 Rs. Whoa, that's huge. Because remember, it was all the way up from 10 to 40 R originally. So then they say that the measurements are just not applicable. Voyager and Galileo are like 2 different epochs. The moon, the planet, they've all changed in these very strange ways. And the atmosphere is now 1,000% denser across the whole thing. It's really, really weird. So there it is, Ganymede. And then even during an eclipse, Ganymede and Callisto are giving off their own brightness. And this was pictured right here. They remain slightly illuminated even during an eclipse, again caused by this plasma that's making our whole solar system glow. Really, really cool. They remain slightly bright even in Jupiter's shadow and not being lit up by the sun. 1/1,000,000th of their normal state. Very interesting. It's particularly pronounced for Ganymede and Callisto, and Dr. Samura Koji said it is a serendipitous discovery made as a byproduct of a cosmological study. They assumed the Galilean satellites would be dark in Jupiter's shadow. That is not what happened. Now we're going into Saturn. I'm going to try to blow through these pretty fast because we still got a lot more slides after the planets. The plasma torus around Saturn got 1,000% denser in less than 13 years. It's 12 years, 81 and 93, 1,000% increase in the same thing, the bright plasma cloud around Saturn. And they ended up finding another one. They found aurora hotspots in 95, and this is a false color image to show you how bright they got, how hot they've become in 95. This was the first time they noticed this, and it keeps getting more intense. Then from 80 to 96, we find out that it's actually rotating slower at the equator by 58.2%. This has got to be one of the weirdest things of all when we're talking about Saturn. How in the heck do you get almost a 60% reduction in the rotational speed of Saturn? If that happened on Earth, we'd all probably fly up into the air. It would be the rapture, right? There'd be no more gravity. I mean, I don't know what would happen, but you'd have to totally reinvent the workday, right? Because if it only takes 58% of the time it's 58% slower. Now people are going to have to work like 15-hour work days. Oh my God, it would be horrible. Nobody wants to do that. So anyway, that's where it came from. And we also saw massive X-ray emissions. At the same time it slows down, it starts burping out all these X-rays, as you can see in this picture on the left. Then this weird spoke formation stuff. There were these dark splotches in the rings, and they all kind of disappeared as of 2004, which nobody really knows why that happened, but it did. And again, this is very dramatic energetic change. So this is what the spokes looked like originally. You can see they're all over the place in the rings, and they just frickin' went away. Now when you look at it, it's all clean. There's no spokes at all. So it's very, very odd. In 2011, Saturn just went crazy and had this storm, unlike anything we've ever seen. This is what it looked like at the beginning. Over the course of months, it stretched across the northern hemisphere and eventually engulfed almost the entire northern hemisphere. A massive storm engulfing the northern hemisphere, snaking its way around 100 degrees of longitude, stretched over 2/3 of the northern hemisphere, about 100,000 miles. Wow. This is again caused by the solar changes, the geometric activation, the end of 25,000 years. All of our planets are getting really angry and doing strange things, causing this temperature in Saturn's stratosphere to go 150 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. This temperature spike is so extreme, it's almost unbelievable, they said. And in 2010, the storm grew so large, the equivalent storm on Earth would blanket most of North America from north to south and wrap around Earth for many times, 150 degrees above normal temperature. Wow. And they measured all this ethylene gas 100 times more than usually thought possible. It's another data point. Here's another thing on the storm. And it was correlated with stunning increases in the actual brightness. Because again, these storms have infrared components, as you can see here. That is the Saturn storm, but it also gets brighter. So now we're going to go out to Uranus and find out if the model holds true. When Voyager went by in 86, Uranus didn't have any big storms. It basically was what they called featureless as a cue ball. But then by 1999, Dr. Karkoshka is saying it was really huge storms and big changes hitting the planet. And you can start to see that here. Now, this is a false color image, so it's kind of the same as the images from the Voyager, except you're looking at those orange dots, and then you're looking at the white clouds, and maybe also the strength of that white band near the bottom. That gets whiter as time goes on. So they say there's ground-based observations of seasonal brightness changes that we really don't understand. By 2004, Uranus has gotten even brighter, and now once again we have these geometrically patterned clouds on the right. There's 4 of them in a row. They're all kind of interestingly spaced from each other. And again, it was featureless as a cue ball back during Voyager in 89, so something crazy is going on with Uranus. It looked like that before, and now look at what's going on. It's even more dramatic over here. Again, we originally started like this, and whoa, what is all this stuff? Again, same thing. We're going into a new zone of energy, and it's charging up all the planets, and as the planets charge up, they are experiencing these white clouds, and so this is a very interesting animation. Starting in 1994, it's going to get faster and faster. We're going to zoom in on the planet. You're seeing Uranus's moons. It does face us from the side, unlike Saturn, so that's why the rings are this way. Now you're starting to see smaller moons inside, but now I want you, we're still in August 94, notice these 2 white clouds, okay? And those were not there as of 89, but now they are, and they're going to start chasing each other, and then it's going to start getting much, much faster. And now instead of just looking at these 2 white clouds, I want you to look over on the right-hand side of Uranus. Don't get nervous. It's going to get really fast. You're going to start seeing all these orange dots appear. And the orange dots are brand new. They weren't there before. And now we're going to go really fast. We're speeding it up, 95, 96, 97. And there's that orange, 98. And we're starting to slow down in 98 now. In July 98, we're slowing down. Whoa, look at all that mess of orange stuff over on the right in 1998. Voyager did not see this. It wasn't there. Those clouds are new, and you can still see the 2 white guys over on the other, so there's actually more than that now. So all this stuff is very strange. Now they're illustrating the magnetic fields and how slowly over time they kind of curl into each other and they bend. But again, the important thing is all those orange dots, that is not supposed to be there. It's very, very weird. And I think that's the end of the animation. Yeah, they're showing you how it iterates in the rings as well, these magnetic patterns and stuff. Okay, we're done. So the next thing I want to show you is this, these dramatic changes in the rings from just 2004 to 7. Where the hell did this come from? 2001, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you're looking at the bottom there, and what we're noticing is that there's this strange glowing area in the rings up near the top in 2001. It's brighter than the rest. But then if you look at 2004, that strange glow has moved around, and now it's on the bottom. And then in 2005, it's like the whole backside of the planet, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. Rare edge-on glimpse of Uranus's rings reveals graphic changes. So dark side of Uranus's rings reveals dramatic changes. They have shifted since Voyager 2 in 1986. And let's read from Scientific American now, so you get to exact specifics. A rare edge-on view of the rings around Uranus gave astronomers their first glare-free peek at them since '86 when Voyager 2 flew past the Solar System's 7th planet. The shaded glimpse, permitted once every 42 years, reveals a surprisingly bright swath of faint dust, which I showed you. It was up near the top in 2001. Another unexpected finding is a broad, dusty inner ring called Zeta, like the Zeta Reticuli, yuck, seems to have migrated further from the planet since Voyager's last visit. Although the rings around Saturn and Neptune have rearranged in recent years, this concludes that Uranus's rings are undergoing the most dramatic changes we have ever observed. There you go, in the whole ring system. Then in 2014, we found out that in the off-season, meaning it's going away from the sun, we've got this surge in storms. So this is the kind of stuff that we just keep seeing. So many examples of this, but in this particular case, I have to be honest with you, whoever picked this particular headline made some very aesthetically dubious choices, the choices that might not smell right. This choice of how they worded this headline could be unfortunately worded, because it says giant storms on gassy Uranus have astronomers scratching their heads, or maybe they're scratching something lower down. I don't even know. Gassy Uranus. Come on, couldn't you have thought this through a little bit? I don't want to insult her, but like, oh my goodness. But then anyway, apart from this, here's the thing. Look at that massive storm in the middle. I showed you that animation before. That wasn't there. This is new, and it's much bigger. Okay? Team lead Imkita Potter said she and her colleagues first observed the strange activity while using Keck Observatory to study Uranus, which they've been doing regularly for more than a decade. To their surprise, they saw 8 large storms, including the brightest one ever seen, again on the equator. It was just by chance I was observing and I noticed incredible storms that we'd never seen before because nobody's looking for this. Nobody expects this to happen. They were highly unusual, she said. They might have expected it in 2007 when their equinox was occurring and the sun is at the equator, but for storms to brew up 7 years after it's on the equator, yeah, this has nothing to do with that. It's about 2012, 2025, solar flash, all that stuff. Charge up of the solar system. They predicted the maximum in 2007, and we did see clouds, but this is nothing compared to 2014. These storms on a usually quiet Uranus, which is now a gassy Uranus, have astronomers scratching their heads. Okay, well, there you go. It blew out some gas. No strong heat source. The other three gassy giant planets, Jupiter, Saturn, and Neptune, all seem to have strong internal heat sources that might be causing this to happen. But Uranus doesn't appear to have one, which means it should be the sun generating this, but we don't know what it would be. 7 years after the equinox, there's not enough sun to explain this, she pointed out. So the inner workings of Uranus, oh my God, I could go so many directions with this, which remain hidden from view, are more complex and I'm not going to do it, okay? I'm just trying to be good. There's so many things I can do with these things, but I'm not doing it. More complex than scientists expected. Well, at least we don't really like the gas. I'm not going to go there. At least it tells us that the theories have to be adjusted. You know, it's certain foods, if Uranus would abstain from certain foods, it might be a little less gassy, perhaps. At least it tells us they have to be adjusted. They are not representative of reality. So it has nothing to do with the solar activity. There's this charge up happening in the whole solar system, and we don't know what the heck it is. Back to the slide. What about Neptune? Same thing. Hardly any clouds in 1989. And then by 2003, Stromovsky discovers a massive increase in brightness. So this is how it started back in like 96 or something around that time. And you can see that there's these clouds starting to form, but there's still not that many. So it's just an animation. But then here is where the rubber meets the road, 96, 98, 2002. And then on the bottom, you see there's an average on the right, AVG, which is the overall planet's average. And then you have 0 rotation, quarter rotation, half, and 3/4. So from 96 to 2002, it literally looks like somebody turned on a lamp inside Neptune and made it brighter. It's incredible. 40% brighter in just frickin' 6 years. What the hell is going on? That's what happened, okay? It's very interesting. Nobody talks about this on Fox or CNN, ever, ever, ever. So this is what it looked like in 89. This is 1996, 1998, and now we're into 2002. Yeah, I'd say it's brightening up quite a bit. Well, then NASA brought the hammer down, and we didn't hear anything more about Neptune until 2016 with Dr. Richard Schmood, or Schmoody, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. He says Neptune is brightened by more than 10% during the past several decades. Photometric variations brightening over time for reasons we do not clearly understand. There you go. They're telling you they don't get it. Lockwood's page updates his 2006 paper providing data through 2014 spanning 42 years. The annual means of their B and Y magnitudes reveal an interval of brightening between about 1980 and 200, 20-year period of time. The upward trends taper off from 2000 to 05 and then began to become constant. The values after 2005 are only 0.12 magnitudes brighter than that of 1980, but that's still significant. And this brightening happened between the times of the equinox and the southern solstice. So he tried to attribute the increase to a seasonal effect, but once again, earlier observations were not well represented by this seasonal model. It is not caused by our position to the sun. That planet's position doesn't make a difference. They suggested the brightening may be related to increase in solar radiation. However, they mentioned the brightness increase is more than 100 times larger than the amount of solar energy increase it's getting. So yeah, that's not the answer. So again, this is what it looked like in 1989, and now we're seeing 96 to 02. So now I'm going to do a whole animation of Neptune so you can really see how much is changing. This is 89, this is 96, 98, and then 2002. Unbelievable. Unbelievable what's going on. Then it had another unexpected bright storm. Everybody thought, oh yeah, it's not doing anything anymore. But then they looked at it again in 2017. This was an amateur telescope guy getting his PhD. And whoa, what in the world? I mean, what? Can you even believe that this is still the same planet? Can you even believe that what you are looking at is the same planet? Look at how much brighter it's gotten. It's a mess, and it used to be clean. What in the world is going on here? A storm complex nearly the size of Earth has been seen in the usually quiet area of Neptune. Ned Moulter spotted the storm performing a test run while he was at Keck Observatory, and it was at least 30 degrees latitude and longitude, 9,000 kilometers in length. Seeing a storm this bright at such a low altitude is extremely surprising. And wow, I mean, it's so crazy. So doesn't this look familiar? Yeah, it's the same thing we saw happening in Uranus. It's happening in Neptune. Normally the air is really quiet, so having an enormous cloud sitting right at the equator is spectacular. As on all planets, Neptune's atmospheric winds vary greatly with latitude, and for the storm system to span so many degrees, there has to be something holding it together. So we have multiple pictures of it. It's very amazing. So now let's do a new animation, okay? 1989, and boom. I guess I didn't really, I'm going to do the animation now. Here we go. 1989 to 2017. So here's 89. Here's 1996, 1998, 2002, and then we're going to zip forward 15 years. Whoa. It's just gone nuts. Lastly, we're going to visit Pluto, which has had a global warming increase of 300% atmospheric pressure even as it was drifting away from the sun. Imagine that. Unexpected mysterious X-rays emanating from the planet were discovered only in 2016, as you can see right here. We'll talk a little bit about that. The image above may look like a blue blob, but it's actually Pluto. This is Pluto as seen by the Chandra telescope, and it's very odd that this instrument can see Pluto at all because we usually associate X-rays with very hot objects, but it's not. They expected that it would be hard to find Pluto in the X-rays, but it was very easy. They detected 7 X-ray photons from the dwarf planet, which is far more than they expected. So here again, unexpected X-rays coming from Pluto. And there is more to the story. New Horizons continues to uncover surprises about Pluto. They thought it was highly unlikely we'd ever detect any X-rays from Pluto, and they didn't even know if Chandra would work. So then the most distant solar X-rays, the solar system body with detects X-ray emissions with Saturn's rings. So again, Pluto is showing energetic charge. Now I'm going to show you a couple things real quick from Michael Lawrence Morton. He's a great researcher from the late 90s. He did this in 98. If you look at all earthquakes around the world that are over a 2.5, there's been about a 400% increase in there from 73 to 98, as you can see. That's all earthquakes around the world. That cannot be explained by global warming or fossil fuel. Same thing with volcanic activity. That's coming from inside the Earth. But if you look from 1875 to 93, Michael Lawrence Morton says, yeah, look, about 500% more volcanic activity. This is about half of all the world's known volcanoes, and they're all going crazy. The oceans are heating up. El Nino, this was in 99, these bands. We're seeing this massive heating of the oceans. Major amounts of brightness increases. And in this animation, you can actually see the hot spots kind of moving around. So, you know, this is actually being caused by stuff inside the Earth. It's actually not, it's kind of getting, you know, less hot now. You can see, oh, there's the yellow again in 2001. And then here's another animation. And again, they're showing you these very intense areas of global warming at the floors of the oceans. Right from the bottom, you know, there's all this stuff going on, and that again is not caused by the sun because it's the bottom of the ocean. There's sea level rises, there's overall surface temperature increases seem to be caused by this, overall increases in tornadoes, and overall increases in natural disasters. You can pause these and look at them if you want, as well as economic losses. And again, this is the warming of the floor of the ocean. The black line you see on the bottom is actually the surface of the ocean. And then where it says station number, that's actually the bottom of the ocean. And then you have a depth charge, which is your x-axis or y-axis in meters. And then the red shows how bright it is. And so the graph on the bottom is 1989, and the graph on the top is 1985. and the graph on the top is 1999. And so the bottom of the ocean is where the heating is the greatest, as you can see by the increases in red and how far down the red lines are going. And it's also creating more salt as well. Earth is having the same thing happen, these noctilucent clouds, which are getting brighter, as NASA noted in 2014. You can read that right here. The presence of bright shining clouds in Earth's upper atmosphere has increased in areas between 40 and 50 degrees north, covering the northern third of the United States and the lowest parts of Canada. The model showed the occurrence of noctilucent clouds had indeed increased from 2002 to 2011. And here's what it looks like. Then in December 2016, here was another article about the unexpected noctilucent clouds. They weren't there before, and they've showed up earlier than ever. These clouds were taken on November 17th, the earliest occasion in which this phenomenon has appeared in over a decade. Recordings of noctilucent clouds usually start in late November, early December. Then in 1998, we saw a new belt. This is really weird. This is interstellar material that shows up in the Earth's magnetic field. You can see it right here on the bottom right. It's called new belt. It wasn't there before. And also the Earth's core is having changes. That again could not be caused by fossil fuel. It says right here, Earth's core and magnetic field is changing fast. Okay, we're at the 2.5 hour mark. This is kind of another stopping point for us, or kind of a junction point between different thoughts and different narratives. And I'm going to try to get through all of this last stuff in a half an hour so that we never go above 3 hours. But in the meantime, look, I got sequins on my shoes. You can't even insult me for this. This is amazing. I worked really hard for you to bring out this level of sizzle, this level of genderqueer, abnormal excitement for you to try to spice things up. I've given you everything you need. I got a maroon shirt on. I changed the color. Can you even imagine that I had that level of sophistication as to wear a different shirt? But I actually did it. So no, it's okay. You don't have to donate. We'll wait for that for later. But anyway, wow, we still got 4,000 people watching after 2.5 hours. That's incredible. If you've been following me in previous weeks, this is kind of like a separate module, but it brings us up to date, or it's going to bring us up to date with everything that's going on. I'm not going to have time to read all of these, but I'm going to leave them on screen so you can pause it and read it for yourself. But they have been posting like crazy. So if you remember this, it's the Ezra channel on what is now called X. I've talked about this before. It starts with the shadow of. So you go to that channel and you'll see many images of it. And my God, have their hits gone up. Some of these posts, they used to only get about 250,000. Some of them are up at like, I think, 3 million, 5 million views. We'll look at it as we go along. But anyway, when we go back to the Zoroastrian and Hindu prophecies, they both talk about the fall of corrupt kings. The Hindus call them the Maleka kings. And in the Zoroastrian tradition, they have Angra Mainyu and Ahriman, the negative entities. And then there's this uprising. Remember, the Zoroastrian prophecy is that there's an uprising from within humanity, not divine forces, but it has to happen here. Now, Archangel Michael in my books reveals that we are getting helped by higher forces, but the ascension itself is something we are co-creating on Earth, and it's very similar to the anti-demonic protocol I talked about in previous weeks. Last week's show is saying if you don't want negative entities in your house, you got to keep it really clean, because apparently there's some way in which they can put part of their energy body into dirt, and then that dirt actually begins broadcasting thoughts to you that could include thoughts of harming yourself, cutting yourself, bad stuff. I mean, the demons want you dead. They want you to kill yourself, and that's when they get happy, is if you actually die, or as much torture as possible before then as well. So the Law of One protocol, the anti-demonic protocol, if you remember from last week's show, the main thing is don't let the dirt accumulate. And so this is a very interesting, I realized this after the show, very interesting holographic metaphor of how we have to clean up the Earth, and we have to clean out these pockets of negativity, and it's not happening as fast as we'd like. People, as we saw in the comments here, were very worried about what was going on back in the eclipse time, because, you know, the Alliance was signaling to us that something really bad could happen. They had images of the black swan with the solar eclipse, and we really did dodge a bullet. there was a war attempted to be started, really, between Israel and Iran. Who's responsible? What was all that? Well, we don't really know yet, but they give us a lot of clues here. So, if you haven't really followed this stuff before, the basic idea is I was briefed in 2009 that there's been a secret effort going on since the 1950s in the intelligence community to expose and arrest the deep state and stop them from trying to keep everybody poor and trying to reduce population by massive numbers. This is something that's been going on the entire time. We're only becoming aware of it now, but there's been a major campaign to alter the contents of our food supply since the early 1970s, which people are now becoming very aware of through problems associated with things like oats and wheat and some of the stuff that we're finding in there, these weird pesticides that actually destroy human fertility. And they shouldn't be in there, and the amounts are much too high. And now everybody is testing out with chlormequat in their urine. It's really, really scary. So I'm just going to get back into this concept with you now that all of these ancient prophecies are not really ancient. There's ETs that are here now, working with the Alliance, as I call it, this movement that's secret within the intelligence community and the military. And then they go back in time and they give us these ancient prophecies like the Zoroastrian, like the Hindu, like the Christian. They're not ancient. They're happening at the same time, and they're describing the events that are happening now and will happen in the future. So this is the premise. The Zoroastrian prophecy is very close to the truth, in my view, because there is this angelic effort to make the uprising occur from within the planet, the anti-demonic cleansing, to cleanse the area, gradual defeat of evil by the concentrated efforts of the just. That was a quote from Boyce and Grennett, I believe. So, there's all this weird background to the idea that there are extraterrestrials here on Earth. They have bases in various places, and there is a war going on to defeat them. And this brings us back to April 12th, where we were last time, where a likely very evil base in Antarctica, probably with reptilians, was destroyed. Now, I didn't actually explain this all the way last time. You see it says 08. Well, what you can see there is this black spot is, again, it's about half the length of the bottom of Africa. And that whole entire black spot, which is totally massive, I mean, look at it compared to the size of South America. It's about half the size of the bottom of South America. All of that, if you look at the graph on the right, is a measurement of an 80-foot tall wave in the ocean, which is a tsunami-sized wave. Thankfully, it happened in an area where there's no people. But what I didn't show you before is that this 8-second video is an animation in which you also see very discrete oceanic ripples, and the ripples are moving along with the wave, and you can see the ripples as these curving lines coming off of the black dot. So if you actually go to this link, again, SOE, look at the top, that's the name. I don't want to say it out loud too many times. But go to X and check this out, because, man, he's posting like 5, even multiple times a day now. It's gotten very, very, very hot. This is pretty much guaranteed some type of massive underground base. And there was an explosion under the sea, and the explosion causes this massive 80-foot tsunami on the surface. That's what it is. They say the official story is it was a data glitch. Do you believe them? What is happening to cause the waves to go as high as 80 feet? And they say it might have also happened on February 21st. Well, we're going to learn about all this. And it's going to be a massive awakening for humanity. So again, if you look carefully, you can see all the ripples of the waves coming off of this 80-foot tall tsunami, because they blew this thing up right off the coast of Antarctica. They showed us Iran's building, the parliament building, and it actually has 33 windows and is shaped like a pyramid. Oh, isn't that weird? Well, no. It's because world leaders are involved in something that you haven't been told about. There's spiritual laws in the universe, so they have to advertise what they're doing. They have to tell you what they're doing, but they don't really want to give the whole thing away, so they do it in symbolic form through things like the Grammys, music videos, award ceremonies, various themes in various television shows, video games, movies, albums, music videos, you name it. But there's some very consistent themes that are very dark. They don't have any originality. Year after year, you have a satanic music awards ceremony. This just keeps on happening. So we talked about that. We talked about that they posted the image of Klaus with an X in his picture. That suggests, they did this on Telegram, but when they went back to X, all they said was that he was rumored to have been admitted to the hospital last night. Now, some people don't understand. Some people watching this may actually think, oh, he's a good guy. Well, no. There's a lot of people studying this who are very concerned about his group, the World Economic Forum, and various inroads that they are trying to make on our civil liberties in a wide variety of contexts. I mean, there's so many things that were going on here. So they told us that something had just happened to Klaus, and then we have this very scary thing going on with Iran, and Biden actually de-escalates the story after hundreds of drones and missiles are sent in. He says, no, we're not going to support the counterattack. And in fact, it's the same thing that the posts were saying. These posts were saying, U.S. military stand down. So this gets back to the guy who's telling me, like, if you're not donating all your money to Gaza, I hate you. Well, I don't have any money. I barely have any food. So please, maybe next week, if I can get some money, I will make that donation and I will happily announce it. I'd happily donate a lot of money if I can get some money on my hands. I just don't have it right now. But in the meantime, yes, please donate. So anyway, I'm sorry, I was on that slide for a really long time. I didn't realize that. But he says, you got to win. Take the win. So then we saw this on April 14th. This was weird. Let's go back to that. Putin and the alliance. And this is what it says. Putin warns the U.S. not to interfere in the tensions between these two nations with an eye. Putin has not condemned the attack by eye against eye yesterday, and instead an eye for an eye, right? That's kind of funny. Putin has not condemned the attack by eye against eye yesterday, and instead calls on restraint from both sides. Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, Brazil, and Pakistan have created a new alliance to ensure NATO does not get away with another Gaddafi moment. Who gave NATO the right to kill Gaddafi? Vladimir, leader of the new alliance. So this is an alliance between Russia, China, Brazil, Pakistan, and North Korea. Yikes. Yikes. If all these guys got together and formed an alliance, and then they don't want NATO to get away with a Gaddafi moment where they would kill him, yikes. That's a that sounds like really scary World War III talk. And he's warning the U.S. not to interfere. But then later on, they made some other posts and they said World War III has started and this is the way it has to be. So we're probably going to see this kind of stuff building up to something, folks. I'm just warning you in advance. And then this was the picture that was down at the bottom of that post on the 14th. Nearly 1 million views when I took this picture today. Then on the 14th, they have a quote from Roth saying that peace is going to be difficult, speaking on the future of I, and that peace will be difficult to achieve with I's neighbors. So I don't know. We probably need to look at post 122 sometimes not. I haven't had time to look at the post yet. Maybe we'll do that next week. But then on April 14th, they kind of scared me here. They said the next 48 hours are very important. Why the next 40? I'm going to zoom in on it now. Why the next 48 hours could be the most important of your lifetime. Now, this is thankfully, again, not what happened, but this was some crazy fear porn, if you will. But it's not fear porn, it's just fear. Oh, shit. It's actually real. The next 48 could be the most important of your life. If I launches an attack on I and triggers an escalation, the price of oil will surge. I will retaliate by blocking the Strait of Hormuz. Such a conflict could spell the end of the oil petrodollar, potentially replaced by central bank digital currency hinted by plans already in motion. We do not want that. That's digital enslavement. They can control whether you eat or not. They can control where you spend your money. You can't spend money more than 15 miles from your house. Your money doesn't work if you go more than 15 miles away. They won't let you fly more than once a year. They're going to tell you what you have to eat. And if you don't like what they're saying and you don't like what they're doing, they cut off your money digitally. And now you just starve to death unless you have friends and you can bum money off of their card. And that's what it's going to turn into, just like in college. Put me on your card, man. Everybody would say that to me. Swift's recent announcement made in March outlines intentions to establish a platform within 1 or 2 years to facilitate central bank digital... Oh, my God. Problem, reaction, solution. Next 48 hours could be the most important of your lifetime, and if it triggers an escalation. So this did not happen, but clearly they were afraid that it could. And they're showing how it could occur all over the world. 2 million frickin' views. Look at that. Wow. They're getting really popular now. That's 800% more than when we started a couple weeks ago. And I hope I had something to do with that. April 14th, they posted this from Ronald Reagan about the alien threat. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. How do you like my... It's not very good, Reagan. I'm sorry. I got to really practice it a little more. But you get the idea. In 1987, he hinted at the idea of global unity under the hypothetical event of alien invasion sounding like Project Bluebeam. 84,900 views. Wow. They're warning us that that the deep state could still stage this fake alien invasion. We're not out of the woods yet, folks. Anything can happen right now. That's what they're telling us. CVN, you're a genius, David. Thanks for all you do. Thank you, CVN. April 15th, they talk about the issue with the bridge. I'm going to show you the whole thing, and then we're going to zoom in. The FBI, to cover up the bridge incident, the FBI is opening up a criminal investigation on the massive container ship that brought down the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore last month. And yes, Francis Scott Key wrote the national anthem, and this was obviously, I believe, intentional, because it's like the collapse of America, the guy that wrote the national anthem, and then his bridge collapses. And it's supposed to make us feel sad and, oh, America's over, and get people thinking that they're going to do bad things, like this guy who hurt himself outside the court where Trump was. That's a very, very sad story, and that's going to be covered a little bit later. January 31st, 2024, leaders of America's intelligence agency warned about Chinese cyber actors planning to attack important parts of the U.S. like the marine industry. And then just 2 months later, March 26th, cargo ship crashes into Francis Scott Key Bridge, headed for Colombo's capital, Sri Lanka. DHS Lisa S., thank you, $33. I love that. Love you, David, she says. The Department of Homeland Security and the Coast Guard have stated the cargo ship was transporting 1.8 million gallons of fuel and 56 containers with quote-unquote hazardous materials. Maybe there was somebody else in there, we don't know yet. But anyway, hazardous materials is bad enough because they wanted to trigger potentially another East Palestine incident. And we're very lucky that that didn't really happen. This could have been much, much worse. So they're trying to blame it on China. You see, that's part of the idea here. And then there it is at the bottom, 62,500 views. And then attacking Iran, April 15th, this was what it said. I will retaliate and attack I. Whoops, I didn't have, this is the only one I got for this one. I claims it has no choice but to attack its enemy, claiming the objective is to harm I without provoking all-out war. This scenario seems impossible due to high stakes involved, although they did attack and nothing else has happened so far. Russia and China will never allow I and the U.S. to transform I into another I. Airports and I are busy as some people are leaving the country. The White House is claiming they don't want escalation. When have they ever kept their word? The White House will defend, and eventually I will drag the U.S. into another new war. Oh my God. I don't want that. I'm reading this too, folks. It's like, oh no. Saudi remains a wild card. There was a reason Pompeo was seen dancing with these soldiers not that long ago. Traitors are now out in the open. And they have a bunch of these different videos they posted, which are pretty short. I don't know if you're supposed to read those posts or not, but 180,000 views, that's impressive. Clarence Thomas went missing April 15th. They reported on this. He was not present for the court cases today, and the court did not offer a reason for his absence. 257,000 views. We really don't know. I mean, I could try to speculate. I think he's already working for the Alliance, but it may be that he got brought in for a briefing and now he's got all this new information. Or it could be that he's being threatened by the enemy and they're telling him you have to do things a certain way or else we're going to run you through the chipper shredder machine. And I've heard that happening to people in Congress, you know, threatened with that. From Pete Peterson told me that. So, like, you know, very scary stuff no matter what. Then they talk about S's planned color revolution on April 15th. The GS color revolution. Bridges have been obstructed. Traffic has come to a halt due to protests funded by GS, resulting in significant disruption across America. The protesters are organized, very much so. They're supported financially. And the primary objective is to create chaos and conflict in society. They actually do not care about Palestine, even though they say they do. Instead, their goal is to cause, Pauline, thank you, Peace Abel, thank you, a clash of civilizations at a time that we are most divided. Golden Gate Bridge was shit down. I think they meant shut down. Whoops. No police are allowed to arrest him. Who controls the DAs? The FBI will never investigate. And then they had this video, and it's 2:16. You might want to look at 2:16. I haven't done that yet. Sorry. I had to do this morning because I didn't know if I was going to do a show. April 15th, we have Assange on this concept of endless war, where the goal is to have an endless war, not a successful one. I'll let you read that. I'm running out of time here. I got to move faster. Schiff and Big Brothers Big Sisters tweeted this in 2017. It's certainly more creepy now than it would have been before. But I don't know. I mean, guilty until proven innocent. So they're just making accusations. That's all it is. It's just an accusation or implied accusation. Cloud seeding apparently happened in the UAE. They were leading efforts to seed clouds, increase precipitation. They would release salt flares into the most promising white clouds and hope to trigger rainfall. Today, they issued a stay-at-home advisory as heavy rain lashed all 7 Emirates, including Dubai. Interesting. Then this beautiful woman, influencer, died, and it's very suspicious because she'd just been talking about the PD thing. She's no longer with us. It's very sad. Her name's Kyle Marissa Roth. She was famous on TikTok, found with no cause given. She recently uploaded videos exposing these 2 people, O and D. The family is unsure about what caused her death. In the weeks leading to this, she was having issues with her account, and over 700,000 followers on TikTok had been banned. Then they had this weird selfie. I have a perfectly gay, prosaic explanation for this, okay? I just want to say that in advance. J-Lo is the ex-girlfriend of this accused person. Remember this creepy picture from 2020? There's a person in the back with his mouth covered, and they explained in mainstream media it was just a man Alex Rodriguez was video chatting with. Well, she's taking this selfie. She's all sweaty. She has kind of a very strange, maybe evil look on her face. Anyway, this is the up-close part. But then down at the bottom, you got this guy, and you can see in the red arrow, it's a reflection in the wall in the mirror. And I did zoom in on that. This is what it looks like. So let's zoom in on him. So it is really creepy. It does look really scary because one could interpret that this is somebody else's hand on his mouth and that he's being tortured. And she's just like, oh yeah, you know what, I'm getting off on this. Let me take a selfie while I'm watching this guy dying. I mean, I think that's kind of what they wanted you to imply. But I have to say this, being familiar from having grown up in New York, this is very likely a gay man saying, oh my God, you look so great. This selfie is amazing. So he could just be, because I've seen gay guys do this. Oh my God, you know? So like, you don't really know what this is. And that's why they don't actually make an accusation. But again, a lot of people interpreted this as being very scary and creepy. He could just be a very emphatic gay man. So I want to make that clear. But it's very weird either way. Then sure enough, after they seeded the clouds, they're talking about this massive rain. Today, a stay-at-home advisory was issued as rain lashed all 7 Emirates. April 16th. Boom. Then they gave us a bit of comic relief on April 16th. Looky here, the world's a stage. They both look alike. It's just a joke. They actually look different, but they have that same overall type of character with the tied back hair, same kind of glasses, which are almost ubiquitous in the LGBT community. You got to have your thick glasses, right? If I wanted to look gay, this is it. I'm in. I mean, instant queerness. I have just upped my queerness very significantly by wearing these glasses. So if you ever need to do that, just go get those dark-rimmed, thick black glasses. You'll be fine. Trust me. Okay. So then, this is something I really didn't even want to bring this slide up, but what the hell, we'll do it anyway. April 16th, Tom, who's been widely accused, I have no idea if it's true, and this concept of Gimme 5, he uploaded this strange picture on his Twitter account with the caption, Red Bluff, California, Summer 16, Gimme 5, and then with an X. So and what did he mean by this? Okay, well, so let's go and zoom in on this first. So that kind of with an X at the end, it could be like handkerchiefs. And remember what I said about the Thuggee sect and that they use handkerchiefs in assassination work. So some people are speculating that what's going on here is a very strange public announcement that he had done something awful. And apparently Gimme 5 has something to do with something you get people to do involving a type of, activity. I won't go any farther than that. But anyway, it looks like a garrote. It says SRC USA. I don't know what SRC could mean. Satanic ritual. I don't know what. But there's a weird glove. There's this like metallic noose. It's very, very disturbing, to say the least. So then Marina Abramovich built this wall of crying. They posted this on April 16th, Holocaust Memorial in Ukraine. And that's really strange. What's that all about? You know, and it's got these quartz crystals coming out of it. And she is well known for spirit cooking and all of her weird, dark religious proclivities. And we're just about at the 3-hour mark, but I'm almost done with my slides. Paying for flu research, April 17th, they talk about this, that the U.S. is creating viruses. Oh my God. I hope that's not true. But again, they talk about it all in here. You can read all that if you want to. I'm running out of time, so I got to keep moving. 114,000 views. And then they say, is it a conspiracy theory? They're talking about these missing kids and this bishop who was stabbed, unfortunately. He spoke publicly about how many children are going missing. Just in Australia, there's 40,000. And he went on to say there's proof that those who abuse children were former leaders in this country. And they continue to dismiss these claims as a conspiracy theory nonetheless. So there you go. It's very, very sad what happened to this guy. Very sad. April 17th, they talk about protecting our children. What's happening with these LA probation officers? 2,500 claims of abuse. Yo, that's not good at all. It's under our noses every single day. We are not paying enough attention. Not one person, not one child should suffer this abuse in America or any other country for that matter. And then how many coincidences can add up on April 17th before it gets to be too many? Well, a cruise employee got arrested for certain types of crimes. There you go. And I don't want to read all this because it's just, again, how many coincidences do we need? Operation Popeye, so many things. Cloud seeding is not a new practice. They talked about how it was a classified program during the Vietnam War. And you can read all that if you want to. Strange statements from Biden, now moving to the 18th. Oh, there's people in the Republican Party who think we're doing this to kids. And then he claimed his uncle was eaten. Why is he saying these things? Again, they're hinting at, they're implying that there's some hinting going on. And then this guy, this rapper, was expected to be arrested by Labor Day, April 18th. Again, Kyle Roth put this out. A famous TikToker found dead earlier this week. Claimed that he would be arrested by Labor Day. Why? He's been canceling his concert for the past 2 years. And by the way, what she was doing was probably following up on leads I'd given here. There's a website called blindgossip.com. And she's always talking about in the blinds it says so-and-so. Well, yeah, you go to blindgossip.com. There's some high-level Hollywood insider who's had a real bone to pick with them for a long time. And he keeps leaking all this stuff, but then he doesn't use people's names. He gives them code names, which she uses in her videos. And they have them on this Twitter page. And the code names refer back to people like PD. So this is something that you can go to the blindgossip.com. You can read this stuff. She just was reading what they said, but then all of a sudden she ended up missing and dead. So like missing from life. Oh my God. So yeah, it really shows the stakes that we all have here and the bravery that I'm demonstrating to you by actually coming out here and doing this. Let's go to the next slide. You can read it up close. So there she is. And again, this had 500,000 views. Whoa. Amazing. They warned about the infrastructure. They had this very disturbing video, 37 seconds long. That brings in, again, a classic quote, post number 37. We've read it before. It says, over the next several days, you're going to be seeing what we're going to do to take back the country. So this is implying very near-term events. And it says, such and such is going to attack the U.S. infrastructure and attempt to blame China or Russia. 207,000 views on that video. And it's this whole weird, scary thing with Klaus talking. And then they actually did this, which again, it's spooky eyes. It's probably just a reflection. But it's pretty hilarious because she does look like a reptilian or something, like a shapeshifter in her eyes. 286,000 views. What happened to her eyes? So once again, this was another kind of nice tip of the hat of the alliance to what I've been talking about. Draco reptilians, they do have apparently vertically slit pupils. No, I don't believe in shape-shifting humans. That's a myth. But they do make contact with these extraterrestrials sometimes. And in some cases, you might psychically see a face over another face. I'm really close to the end now. I want to get through all these. April 18th, it says the bait has been set by I for the U.S. Will the U.S. eventually join this war? Is this the point of no return for Russia? Russia and China have been preparing for this moment since the fall of Gaddafi. So they're warning there might be a war. 333 was the length of the video. That's my favorite number. That's the opposite of 666, is the positive opposite, in my opinion. April 18th, 2024, it had to be this way. I has initiated an assault targeting the facility situated in Isfahan. The air defenses are actively countering the attacks, prompting a halt in commercial flights. Airstrikes, oh my gosh. They've declared their intent to retaliate using unprecedented weaponry. This differs from Iraq, as Iran can expect full support from Russia and China. All eyes on Putin. Had to be this way. Oh gosh, this doesn't sound good. Ugh, okay, well, 3.5 million views. That means people are getting it. People are paying attention. And then, they said World War III has started April 18th. They said U.S. military stand down. So they don't want anybody fighting these wars. And again, this is a message that comes from the highest level. And then it says World War III has started. It had to be this way. Well, it's starting slowly, thank God. It's not escalating as fast as we thought. And then on April 18th, they give me something that makes me think it's not as bad as I was afraid. Because it says there's been no airstrike. They only made a failed and humiliating attempt to fly quadcopters, and they were all shot down. And the U.S. officials confirmed they did not target these facilities. So now it's kind of de-escalated for a while. As of the 19th, it says eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. The strikes are done, but there's still spy ships appearing and so on. So then they really hinted that we have more time on April 19th, and this actually brought my pulse down quite a bit. There's a shadow war between R and I. We don't want that. That's not good. Shadow war between R and I, which is going to take center stage in time as America continues losing status as the world's superpower. T is building a new republic. So notice it says take center stage in time. Well, how much time? A week? 3 weeks? A month? I don't know. I mean, I certainly don't think we're waiting till November, nowhere near that far. But this is the first sign that I've thought of, maybe we still have a few months. I don't know. I mean, you can decide for yourself what in time actually means, but it may be that there is some type of direct confrontation in the future. I really hope that doesn't happen, but this is what they're laying out for us. Then they also urged us that more people need to speak out on these types of topics. Trafficking, V's, lockdowns, usury, legal wars, central banks. The more I listen to him, the more I understand why they wanted him dead. So that's, it's very unlikely anybody's going to come after you if you do this stuff. To get assassinated, you have to really push the envelope these days. So I think you're safe if you want to talk about this. I mean, I'm doing it. What the heck? I'm still here. So Taylor Swift, they talked about this on the 19th. She's been accused of casting spells upon thousands of people, which some would describe as a massive ceremony. In the second clip, she's singing about an airplane, and then a plane just happens to fly overhead right at that moment. So they're saying that could have been deliberate. So yeah, this gets into the whole secret of the music industry. You'd never suspect somebody like that because she's really cute. She looks great. Okay, there's nothing wrong with her. She's just a beautiful woman. Well, she might not even know what's going on. She might have, hypnosis and have no idea what's going on. But then they also warned us that there's going to be additional chaos. This is when this poor soul burned himself in front of the building. Something similar happened in February, and they say you're going to see more of this kind of thing happening. Then they give you some details on the guy, same day, and he absolutely hated Trump, but he was creating his own weird conspiracy theory where Trump and Clinton and all of them are in on it together. You can read more about it here. And then, these are all things that he believed. So he believed both parties are run by criminals whose only goals are to divide, deceive, and bleed us dry. And there he was, pictured with Clinton. So it's very strange, and almost 1 million views on this one so far. And then he also apparently had the client list. He liked this video, which had this as the caption, "It's the list," and it shows all these people getting medals, and there are many people suspected of being on the list. Then the whole idea that E is not dead shows up again. He believed that he was still alive. So again, this guy did horrible things to himself, but he believed that there was a greater conspiracy, and he just got a lot of the details wrong, in my view. Then on April 20th, we're now getting really close to the present. They say, why do so many people change their last names? They talk about this very creepy video, April 20th, the hidden daycare deep in an underground tunnel after walking for nearly 2 miles. This, again, is getting us ready for ugly things we're going to learn. 500,000 views on that. They talk about Speaker Johnson and that he's trying to fulfill this great project. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, man. I don't even want to read this out loud. You can read it if you want to. But I've done my job, okay? You can look at it, and it 59,000 views. And they dissed Alex. I kind of don't want to hurt Alex's feelings. He's been through so much. But they did throw a little shade on Alex. He's once again telling a BS version of history. This is why Bill Cooper despised him. Who declared the war on Germany? And then they have this whole video, and it talks you through the whole thing. And again, I grew up in New York, and so I feel very badly about the Holocaust. I absolutely believe it did happen. And they just are giving you some different perspectives on how that war might have started in this case. But then, I think getting up to the present now, this is the last one that they just showed us. Ryan Garcia won his fight. He claims he has the complete list, saying high-profile figures are running away because they know what's coming. It's going to happen. And he suggested the existence of other islands that are similar for purposes of this blackmail. He possessed evidence indicating that the elites involved in the forests of the BG. Uh-oh. So they showed us this. And then we had Bill Maher calling out this agenda, and that really shocked me. I mean, if you watch this thing, it's like, whoa. He really, really doesn't hold back. And to me, this is proof that they are now not holding back at all. They need to get out there in the open and, try to get ahead of this thing in the mainstream. So, like, all of a sudden, they don't want the woke stuff. They don't want the, gender things going on. He's got a very different message than what the media was putting out before. And I think they've realized they're really boxed into a corner now, and they got to just, get the truth away from them as quickly as possible. Well, I'm happy to report I've gotten myself up to date. I'm up to the present with the situation of the posts, and that's the most recent one that I just showed you. So I feel very good because we're just over 3 hours, and I'm trying to keep it as manageable as possible. So now I get to summarize what this is all about. In my view, the posts that I've just been reading you are tracking a situation, as they said, could have ended right around the eclipse. That whole I versus I thing could have led to a very intense escalation that could have led to blackouts, internet blackout, arrests, emergency message system, all that stuff. As a result of this not going that way, the more recent posts are now pretty authoritatively telling us that we got more time. In time, this is going to happen. So that makes me feel great because every week I've been looking at these messages and the urgency that they have, and I'm like, this could be the last time I get to do a show before something really, really big is going down. Now I think we can breathe a little bit more. So I wanted to bring to you the Zoroastrian and Hindu prophecies because both of them talk about how evil is defeated, that our planet is transformed, and especially in the Zoroastrian tradition, they emphasize that we build our way into this transition from the ground up. So I've talked to you about this at great length. It's been 3 hours a week for weeks. And now we've also gotten to see the interplanetary climate change. We've gotten to see how the real-world data from NASA on every single planet in the solar system, including Earth, completely validates ancient prophecies from 35 different cultures around the world about a 25,000-year cycle, saying that at the end of the cycle there's going to be a solar flash. And it did happen, but only next door. It didn't happen here, it happened next door. So this data is so fascinating because we have so many measurable changes. We got brightness changes in Uranus's rings. Neptune went crazy and got all bright. Uranus went crazy and got all bright. Saturn has got a 58.6 slowdown in its clouds. All these extra plasma tubes. All of Jupiter's moons are getting brighter. Jupiter is getting hotter. Mars is getting hotter. Venus is getting brighter. Mercury's got magnetic tornadoes. New magnetic field. It's just so much stuff. And I'm sorry if I'm overwhelming you with data. This is a lot to do in 3 hours, but I just wanted to bring in the interplanetary climate change again, in case you haven't already seen this stuff, because it maps out so nicely with prophecies that we absolutely know are ancient. Hindu and Zoroastrian are absolutely ancient. The Greek prophecy about the fire from heaven is ancient. And yet the solar system is doing exactly what we would expect that it would do to make these prophecies fulfilled in the present time. The Zoroastrians visited Jesus. They had frankincense and myrrh. Those are anti-demonic incense products. They wanted to practice that he would be the savior, give him the stuff he needs. And sure enough, now what we have is a prophecy that says Saoshyants plural will come back, but they're led by one sort of messianic leader, and that this will lead to the defeat of evil on earth through the concerted efforts of the just. So now what I'm showing you is the concerted efforts of the just in the form of what we call the alliance. The fulfillment of the Zoroastrian prophecy is happening with the alliance, whether you know it or not. I was briefed on this back in 2009. I said to myself, if these guys are really serious, then how come there isn't more prophecy about this? How come there aren't more people talking about this? So to understand the big picture of all the physics and all the science of Ascension, I did create a course, and I'd like to just at the end promote it one last time. Sacred Science of Michael Prophecies, 11 documentaries, 10.5 hours at thedisclosure.com. Type in the word jubilation. I will give you a massive discount. And again, these videos go into all the details that explain why the interplanetary climate change is happening, how this geometry works, how the 25,000-year cycle works, what the ancient prophecies said, how it came through Saint Germain. I mean, it's an astonishing body of data. We get into the information about Crowley and Lam and occult rituals, all this kind of stuff. I also want to say this coming weekend, I'm appearing at Disclosure Summit, and you can visit it at this site. This is the front page of the website. We've got James Gilliland, who's a classic UFO researcher. We have 2 classic Brazilian UFO researchers. We have some really robust scholars of the Law of One material, like Michael Wiskoski. We have my classic co-star from the Gaia TV days, Corey Good. This is the Eddie Van Halen, David Lee Roth reunion, if you wanted one. We're doing it once. Corey and I have remained friends. I did not want to get involved in any of the legal battles that he's been doing, but I still support him because we have some similarities in our work, and I wanted to do this event and kind of break my fast. And honestly, there wasn't any other events I felt comfortable speaking at right now. I just wanted to do one that was close to home. I don't have to travel. I don't have to get on a plane. I can drive there. I actually did get a dog sitter. And at this event, the CEO of Stavatti is going to be there, Chris Beskar. I'm going to try, when we do the meet and greets, to have like a Chris Beskar line and a David Wilcock line. There's going to be 2 lines, okay? So, that way we can get more people. Everybody can meet Chris. Everybody can meet me. When he talks, we'll probably break it off into 2 lines. But anyway, he's claiming that he's going to disclose a lot of new information. And so you can buy that a la carte. You don't have to go to the conference. All you have to do, again, is go to this website, thedisclosuresummit.com. And you can, if you want to, buy the streaming version of what we're going to be doing. Last but not least, we have 3 hours and 12 minutes. And now I want to go back to my main slide here, where I can look at what you guys are saying. Meditate on the symbol of the tree of life your ancestors created on ancestral land, and you will reignite your blood. This is from Goddess Guru Melina. I believe it was made up. I never trusted his ridiculous claims. I just wanted to see it. Chris King says the meek shall inherit the earth. Bulletproof vests on, Lauren Renee says. I think I'm going to be fine. We're going to have good security. So there's a lot of people that are going to be there. Tarotina, when the moon is on the 7th house and Jupiter's aligned with Mars, did not happen yet. We are not in the age of peace and love, just Kali Yuga, last time's war and destruction. Well, yeah, as Michael said, it got delayed to 2025. Oh, you got girly a human chew toy. I'm not sure what that means. Thank you, David, for your efforts. The Michael prophecies have really helped my family. Now I stay calm and informed for the last 2 years. I love these 3-hour videos. A season of love is blind, except that they're all competing for David. I don't want you guys to compete for me. We can share, just spread David around. Spread the love, man. Thank you for sharing, Misty World. You should see if Chris Beskar can build a facility here in New York. We got a 3-mile long runway he can test the new aircraft at, John Smith. Yeah, we do have a facility in New York. We have a 180,000 square foot military hangar in Niagara Falls. We call it Snapper, and that's our prototyping facility. We're also looking at getting one in Texas. There might be some other states we might be doing things in. We're looking to expand. There's some foreign countries we're talking to. I'm not even worried anymore. I mean, we might have a deal by Monday or Tuesday. Don't worry about me. I'm going to be okay. It's going to be fine. Peace, love, harmony, and freedom. Meek equals MK equals the Black Goddess. I love it. I don't know who Corey is, Curzon Cox says, but the legal system is designed to keep geniuses from speaking to each other and wasting time. The educational system is designed that way. 100th Monkey says not many will make it to 2025. I don't believe that. You bring out the best in me, says Patty McKenna. Smokey the Bear says, we love the shoes and the maroon shirt. Dear David, is Chris Beskar planning to build a facility in Arizona? Yeah, we have looked at some facilities in Arizona. We've talked about that. That is one of the places. It is in some ways better to work in the south because it's more year-round warmth and it's better for flying planes than in cold weather. Okay, let's have some more. The gold shoes are the right choice, brother. I hope you've seen my attempts to connect and show you back mystery teaching. Ohio UFOs, a peaceful kind. Well, everybody sends me stuff and I do my best to look at it. The Sacred Science course is absolutely worth it, says Enrico Dion Vigiloni. Miranda Anderson says, I wish you wouldn't disclose so much about your company's future and location. Well, no, we're not, there's no problem there. David, what happened to the left side of your face? Okay, we'll zoom in and make it as unflattering as possible. I had a zit here last week. You remember it was bagged out. Well, it's just a tiny, tiny little thing now. It's almost gone. I did pop it because I needed to get rid of it. So Jupiter aligns with all the planets. David should come to upstate New York. We love you, David. Mabuhay. Sparkly shoes. Have you ever looked at Mark Florentino's work? No? Help, I'm trapped in a rapidly deteriorating meat suit. Kwang Hong Chan says, is Chris Beskar accepting job applications at the event? I'm thinking of handing in a resume. Yes, you can give us a resume at the event if you want to. We have a lot of people who have offered to help us in many different ways, including very skilled ways, and we appreciate that. So I want to keep it to 3 hours and 20 minutes, so let's start the meditation now. Scarlet Fire says, the vibration of words is stronger than thoughts. Say it with your heart. Goddess Guru Melina says, my brothers and sisters, meditate on the tree of life your ancestors created on your ancestral land. Reignite your fire now. Your wisdom teachings is my big wake-up, Joe Snow says. Thank you so much. Name your company, please, David. It is Stavatti Aerospace, Stavatti. We just had a tweet get 1 million views. It was totally incredible. And somebody says, can I be a moderator for you, David? Yes, we always need more of that kind of help as well. All right, let me get framed up on 3 here so I'm in focus. And we will go into our global peace meditation. Yay! I'm finally done, man. This is like so much work getting through one of these shows. My God. Trying to get it done in 3 hours and trying to cram you guys full of all this information is not easy. But again, we have a little bit more time. I feel better than I did before. I'm more confident. And without further ado, let's start our meditation. Here we go. I'd like you to close your eyes now. Put both feet flat on the floor. And let yourself just drift into a nice, easy state of relaxation. Follow your breath. As you breathe in, and then just gently let yourself exhale. Imagine all the changes that are happening in your life now as you're awakening to a much greater reality than what most people would dare to believe is really true. And as you're awakening to this greater reality, as you're breathing in and relaxing more and more, as you breathe in, imagine the planets and how they're changing. Look at Neptune. Look at the incredible brightness increases that we've stumbled over. Look at Uranus. Look at the massive clouds of plasma around Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, and the Earth, this amazing magnetic and brightness increase caused by this new cloud that we're drifting into the center of the galaxy. As you breathe more and more deeply, coming to a place of quiet inside yourself, imagine now that all of this planetary energy is transforming your DNA. And as your DNA is transforming, you are awakening healing power to heal anything that could go wrong in your body, to heal even the most confounding, deathly illnesses, to reach a body that is immortal, undecaying, and undying. That is the promise. And as we keep moving forward, we see these events taking place, and we are so grateful to have avoided larger scale catastrophes. We are so grateful that we are still on a timeline in which these things are happening, and there is a rapid acceleration, there is a rapid excitement. We feel that excitement now. We feel the light streaming into the solar system. We feel these changes that are occurring in everyone. And as we keep breathing, we just relax, and we know that all will be well, just as these ancient prophecies told us, made by higher level beings in flying discs. We see that in Hindu and Zoroastrian and many others, telling us the truth about the future that we can all look forward to, a future of truth, a future of beauty, a future of love, a future of expanded consciousness, a future in which many things that seem to be hidden from us now will now be commonly accepted truths. And we breathe in with the knowingness that our galactic family will soon return to us, our galactic brothers and sisters, sharing happiness, sharing knowledge, and sharing wisdom, saving our planet from what would have been a certain doom, reminding us to share this love that we're raising now with the planet, with all those in need of prayer and healing, and most importantly, sharing this love with ourselves, bringing us back to the point of the present, bringing us back to the omnipresent consciousness of one infinite creator, and how that consciousness becomes our own as we still our breath and still our minds and focus on the effervescent peace in between the cracks of everyday reality. We send this energy to the earth and all those in need of prayer and healing, and lastly to ourselves, for we are the light, the love, and the one infinite creator. This is as it was, as it is now, and as it always shall be, and so it is. Okay, we only lost 350 people. Let's start waking up now. That's not too bad. 350 die-offs, that's not too bad. 3,655. We still have that now. That's incredible. Thank you guys for hanging in there with me. It wasn't that long, was it? Oh, we're a little over 3 hours and 20 minutes. I didn't really want that. But anyway, here we go. I hope you've enjoyed it this week. I think we got a little more time. I think you can breathe a little more. We dodged some major, major bullets around the eclipse, and we're still trucking. So what do they mean by in time? Maybe a few weeks. I don't know. But definitely, I would say well before November. Still, I'm not going to expect it to last that long. But anyway, I want to thank you for being here. Let's read a few more of your comments. Vortex of DEW. Thank you so much, David. I have related and found your knowledge fascinating. I'll continue sending you love and respect, your inner wisdom to help all of us move forward in our cosmic destiny. Then somebody says, don't you think we're going through the photon belt soon? It's a multi-year event that happens. Well, yeah, we're in it now. I mean, that's the point. We're going through something very phenomenal. Major, major worldwide consciousness activation. Goddess Guru Melina, I've enjoyed reading her stuff. David, you're a warrior of fire. Don't be afraid to be dangerous. Your heart is in the right place. Say her name, the Black Goddess. Say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud. I love James Brown. I love the Black Goddess. Thank you. Thank you. So I want to end now. This has been a really great show for you guys. Stavatti Aerospace Incorporated. Yep. Much love from Switzerland. Always a pleasure to wake up with you. Thank you. I'm glad I caught the live stream. Eagle Dove 9. Tarotina sends me a bunch of hearts. Thanks, David, my mother, and I love you eternally. Always grateful to learn from you. I want to thank you guys for watching today. It's been a real honor to be here, And we will probably, oh, I can't see you next week because I'm going to be doing an event. So you're going to miss me next week. But I am going to be speaking. You just have to pay for it this time. But I'll be back the week after. So we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.